Chapter 1093. The Royal Sapphire Dragon could not hear what List was saying due to the howling hail. It seemed to be disdainful of understanding what a human, an ant, was saying. Seeing that its magic hailstorm attack was loud like thunder but small like rain and did not cause any obvious damage, it opened its mouth and spat out dragon breath. It was a brilliant bluish-white light, almost like a laser. Before the gray-mouthed iron dragon could react, it had already hit its chest and abdomen. Roar! The gray-mouthed iron dragon, Orn, felt the pain and let out an angry roar. The Royal Sapphire Dragon succeeded in its attack and opened its mouth again, preparing for the next dragon breath attack. Dodge, Orn. List endured the pain of the mind and soul as one and maneuvered the gray-mouthed iron dragon to dodge. He glanced at the spot hit by the laser dragon breath. A large circle of dragon scales had been shattered. The wound seemed to have been burned by fire, and the charred area was emitting smoke. It was as if he could smell the roasted dragon meat. It had to be said that the power of this laser dragon breath was almost enough to seriously injure the gray-mouthed iron dragon. Seeing that the Royal Sapphire Dragon was about to spit out laser dragon breath again, Orn's ferocity was completely stimulated. He also opened his mouth and spat out dragon breath. Countless metal torrents turned into steel blades and shot straight at the Royal Sapphire Dragon in a pillar-shaped path. However, the speed of its dragon breath was slightly slower. The Royal Sapphire Dragon twisted its body and dodged it. The laser dragon breath that was brewing in the dragon's mouth took the opportunity to shoot over. Boom! The beam of light brushed past Orn's wings and shot into the distance. Orn dodged the attack and raised his dragon head again. He opened his dragon mouth and was about to spit out his own dragon breath, metal torrent. However, it was dominated by List's thoughts. Stop spitting dragon breath, Orn. This primitive and backward fighting style should not appear on a dragon knight. Immediately, his thoughts flashed with a brilliant light. Charge with me. The Dragon Battle Secret Manual was quickly unleashed. The grip of Thunder Dragon Spear was slightly shorter, but it could barely unleash the Dragon Battle Secret Manual that the gray-mouthed Iron Dragon Knight had studied for generations. Human-Dragon Unity. He went straight to the Royal Sapphire Dragon, then infused a large amount of magic power and chi into the Dragon Spear. Wrapped in a violent momentum from a tricky angle, he stabbed the Royal Sapphire Dragon's left armpit. In the case of a failure in communication, if he wanted to subdue the Royal Sapphire Dragon, he could only first beat it into submission. One gunshot after another. After the well-trained Dragon Knight entered battle mode, it finally displayed its true combat prowess. Every time the Dragon Spear struck, its speed, angle, and strength were all in one. Even the air was pierced and rippled, as if it could pierce through the boundary of matter with just a little more progress. The Royal Sapphire Dragon's combat power was not weak. Whether it was the sturdy magic power attack or the electric laser dragon breath, they were powerful offensive moves. Unfortunately, it had never received the Dragon Knight's training, so its power was scattered and not condensed. It had a ferocious and violent aura, but it lacked the invincible explosive power. After going around in circles for a few rounds of battle, List had successfully turned the situation around with the gray-mouthed Iron Dragon. From the beginning it was difficult to deal with, but it gradually suppressed the Royal Sapphire Dragon. The Dragon Spear, Thunderbolt's grip stabbed the beautiful dragon scales of the Royal Sapphire Dragon several times, making bloody holes one after another. Dragon blood splashed out. Royal Sapphire Dragon, I said that you have power but can't use it. Don't you understand? You lack a knight like me to guide you. In between battles, List could still multitask and try to convey his attitude. However, the response he got was the Royal Sapphire Dragon unexpectedly turning around and waving its long tail like a thick whip. The distance between the two dragons was definitely more than the length of the dragon's tail. But just as the dragon's tail swung toward the gray-mouthed Iron Dragon, a blue-white lightning spread from the tip of the dragon's tail. In an instant, the dragon's tail turned into a handle, and the front end was a chain of lightning arcs tens of meters long. Crackle. Crack. The chain of lightning arcs hit the gray-mouthed Iron Dragon fiercely, then broke into tiny lightning bolts, shooting around the gray-mouthed Iron Dragon's body. Roar! Orn trembled from the electric shock. List, who was riding on the Dragon Fang platform, also had electric sparks flashing all over his body. However, he quickly transformed his skin into the Phoenix incarnation to avoid the damage of the lightning. Although the gray-mouthed Iron Dragon still felt the numbness of being electrocuted, it no longer affected him from continuing to attack. The Thunderbolt's grip rushed forward and stabbed the Royal Sapphire Dragon again. After pulling out the tip of the spear, dragon blood splashed out. In this way the battle was on and off. The royal sapphire dragon would release a chain of lightning arcs, List would stab with the dragon's spear, and the greymouth iron dragon would occasionally tear with its claws. Most of the time, it was two dragons of similar size, rolling up their respective air currents and colliding with each other, showing the most barbaric fighting of flesh and blood. This battle quickly entered a white-hot stage. On List's side was the Dragon Knight, and its combat power was obviously superior to that of a single dragon. However, the Royal Sapphire Dragon had many means, and its fighting style was very different from ordinary dragons. Like a magician among dragons, it could always counterattack the Greymouth Iron Dragon unexpectedly. As they fought and flew, their position was already very far away from the original snowy mountains. The sun on the horizon also began to set, and it was gradually evening. Still not admitting defeat, Royal Sapphire Dragon? Roar. Dragons were arrogant. The Royal Sapphire Dragon, which was covered in wounds, was still in high spirits and did not reduce its arrogant attitude at all. Its huge dragon eyes looked deeply at List a few times. Enduring the stab of the dragon's spear, it quickly fled into the distance. Seeing this, List smiled slightly. He did not seem to be in too much of a hurry. He simply communicated with Orn, Chase. He fell behind the Royal Sapphire Dragon at a moderate distance, not letting it escape the Greymouth Iron Dragon's dragon sense. One chased and one fled. The last ray of light from the evening dissipated, and the earth entered night. Seeing that the Greymouth Iron Dragon was not in a hurry to chase, the Royal Sapphire Dragon relaxed appropriately and healed its body that had dozens of holes. However, at this moment, a sudden shiver of vigilance rose in its heart. The aura of the other dragon was hidden by the Greymouth Iron Dragon's aura, and it was impressively exposed. The dragon eyes patrolled in the night, but it could not find where the other dragon was. It could only speed up anxiously, trying to escape. Before it could speed up and get rid of the Greymouth Iron Dragon, a gap invisible to the naked eye suddenly appeared in the void of the night. Then a sharp squeak pierced the night sky. Grayish-white mist suddenly appeared and sprayed on the Royal Sapphire Dragon's body. This mist was sharper than the sharpest blade. As soon as it came into contact, the Royal Sapphire Dragon's dragon scales, which had almost recovered, were cut into pieces and continued to penetrate into the flesh below. The Royal Sapphire Dragon was in so much pain that it wanted to die. It flapped its wings wildly, not hesitating to consume its supreme dragon magic, and rolled up endless magic hailstones to attack indiscriminately in all directions. However, such an attack could not lock on to the position of the dragon that attacked it. The looming aura was like a maggot attached to the bone, constantly penetrating into the heart of the Royal Sapphire Dragon, making it feel tremendous pressure. And behind it, the Greymouth Iron Dragon had also caught up. One in front and one behind, the aura of the two dragons firmly locked onto it as if they would launch a fatal attack at any time. Click. A strong light rose from the back of the Greymouth Iron Dragon. It was the light emitted by a row of magic light bulbs, shining on the Royal Sapphire Dragon. List's voice was particularly clear in the night. Royal Sapphire Dragon, I said that the fate between you and me is preordained by fate. You should not run away. Come on, make the right choice. You and I are one. I need your strength, and you will receive the offerings of the Fire Kingdom. The Royal Sapphire Dragon's roar was still full of disdain. Even in the face of two dragons with nowhere to run, it still did not change its attitude. List shook his head. He knew that the Royal Sapphire Dragon would never lower its head unless it was half crippled. As an experienced dragon rider, he knew the dragon's character very well. If a human and a dragon were incompatible, the dragon would rather die than surrender at will. Therefore, the previous verbal communication and the slightly pretentious battle were just to buy time so that the invisible dragon bard could arrive as soon as possible. From the beginning, he had never intended to conquer a dragon alone. I am a dragon knight with 8 dragons. Chapter 1094. Happy Lantern Festival to everyone from the Big Dragon died. Currently typing. Please wait a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 1095. Compared to most gemstone dragons, the Royal Sapphire Dragon was indeed very powerful. Its magic attack and laser dragon breath were powerful means of attack. Unfortunately, it was facing List. As the one favored by fate, the power of fate had already arranged everything clearly. Under the pincer attack of the gray-mouthed iron dragon Orn and the invisible dragon Bard, the Royal Sapphire Dragon was brutally abused and fell to the ground with serious injuries. But Orn, who was slightly injured, stepped on the royal sapphire dragon's tattered body and trampled on it to vent his anger. Roar! He was very displeased with the royal sapphire dragon because List had been thinking about this dragon along the way, which made him very angry. Bard landed on the side, his beautiful appearance undamaged. Although it was still underage, the holy dragon's powerful combat power was becoming more and more prominent. However, it had always lived a peaceful life and rarely had emotional fluctuations because of other dragons. Roar! The royal sapphire dragon lay on the ground and wanted to struggle, but it had no strength. Its magic and energy had been exhausted in the battle. But its eyes were still shining with an unyielding light. It would rather die than lower its head. Why do you have to do this, Sai? List motioned for Bard to come over and open the royal sapphire dragon's mouth. Then he took out a dragon's soul fruit and stuffed it into the dragon's mouth. Then he let Bard lift the dragon's neck and let the dragon's soul fruit fall smoothly into its throat. Watching the enchanting dragon's soul fruit being swallowed, he revealed a satisfied smile. Royal sapphire dragon, there's no use in resisting something destined by fate. Why not resign yourself to adversity? In fact, from the first second I saw you, I even thought of your name. The royal sapphire dragon wanted to kill List with its breath, but its magic was exhausted and it could not even spit out a trace of dragon breath. List was still talking to himself. You have a powerful magic attack similar to magic and can be called a dragon magician, so your name is Rise. Rune magician, Rise. I hope you can spread this name and let everyone know the charm of the Demon King. The Rune magician in League of Legends was a Demon King level hero in the mid lane. Rise roared hoarsely, roar? Sleep, sleep. When you wake up tomorrow, the world will be different. The door to a new world will officially open to you. You will also understand that I am the most suitable knight for you. It is fate that has chosen us to be one. Roar? After a few indignant roars, the royal sapphire dragon Rise gradually felt exhausted. Its unyielding eyes gradually lost focus and its eyelids became heavy. It didn't take long for it to fall into a deep sleep. The dragon eyes closed and the scales protecting the dragon tooth platform slowly opened. List glanced at the gray-mouthed iron dragon that was still stepping on Rise's back. Ornn, come down. Don't step on Rise. Ornn walked down unwillingly. Roar. This is the magic potion you gave me to replenish my energy. Hurry up and recover from your injuries. Grabbing a handful of magic potion and stuffing it into Ornn's mouth, List sent it away. Naturally, Bard also obtained a batch of potions. It was a pity that the Fire Dragon Water and Water Dragon Water were special dragon potions, and the Red Dragon Water was difficult to obtain. He could only use some magic potions that were not very effective on dragons. After comforting the two dragons, he jumped onto Rise's back and found the exposed dragon tooth platform. He took a deep breath and slowly sat on it. Boom. In an instant, he had already established a mysterious connection with Rise. The scene in front of him changed immediately. He was still in the dense forest a moment ago, but in the next moment he had already arrived at the dark blue world of the Crystal Stairs. The experienced List naturally understood that this Crystal Stairs was Rise's spiritual world. Every dragon had an imaginary spiritual world. This world was both illusory and real. Furthermore, the structure of the spiritual world was different according to the personality of every dragon. Such a large crystal staircase, the material should be similar to the gemstones and crystals produced by Rise. It seems like he is very narcissistic about himself. Standing at the edge of the bottom of the stairs, List looked up and realized that there was a dark blue dragon lying at the top of the stairs. Only part of its body could be seen. There was no doubt that this was Rise's own projection in the spiritual world, but its body was wrapped in colorful chains. This was the power of the enchanting dragon's soul fruit. As if sensing List's intrusion, the dragon bound by the colorful chains moved. It turned its head with difficulty and looked down at List from above. Its eyes were filled with a complicated look. Rise was already unconscious in reality, but it was awake in the spiritual world. They looked at each other for a few seconds. List nodded. Can I complete the spiritual battle by climbing the stairs? I understand, Rise. I will reach the top whether you believe it or not. The rules of the battle in this spiritual world were very simple. Climbing all the stairs would be considered a victory. Every step of the stairs would have a different magic attack. In other words, Rise was actually a dragon with the soul of a mage. The huge stairs he built were a visual display of all kinds of magic. A type of magic would appear on each step, an attack technique formed by magic. Phew. Rise, who was at the top of the stairs, let out a disdainful breath from his nostrils, and then slowly crawled down. Although he was awake, he could not fight against the heavy colorful chains on his body. The meaning of his disdain was self-evident. List was not angry. He just smiled. Rise knew nothing about fate. In the next moment, the cloak formed by the power of fate moved without any wind. His body emitted raging flames, and he quickly turned into a fiery red phoenix. Screech! The loud and clear cry was like a horn. His wings were wrapped in gray smoke and he flapped them gently. His body was like a bolt of lightning as he rushed toward the stairs. He had already reached the first step, and magic quickly formed countless wind blades. But before the wind blades could be added to the phoenix's incarnation, List had already rushed to the second step. Then, when the second step began to transform into dense hailstones, he had already quickly passed through it and rushed to the third step, attracting countless thunderbolts. But the thunderbolts were also like wind blades and hailstones. As soon as they were brewed, the phoenix's incarnation rushed to the fourth step at a speed that could not be captured by the naked eye. The first step was at least 1,000 meters wide. Any knight would not be able to pass quickly and could only resist the violent magic attacks. But for the phoenix's incarnation, who was supersonic, passing through the steps was a piece of cake. The magic attacks could not even hit a feather on his body. In the blink of an eye, the phoenix's incarnation had rushed out of the 20th step and was halfway up the stairs. The royal sapphire dragon Rise could no longer lie still. It struggled to raise its head and stared at the phoenix incarnation that List had transformed into. It wanted to open its mouth and roar. But a colorful chain quickly appeared on its dragon mouth and bound it tightly. Could not open its mouth at all. But this side of the mental world still changed as Rise struggled. The upper step that had not released magic began to brew magic attacks in advance without waiting for List to rush over. Tornadoes, lava rains, tsunamis, rock collapses, lightning chains, scorching suns, overlapping icebergs, bubbling pus, and other illusionary spells quickly appeared. Rise had already changed the rules of the mental battle to stop List, the cheater. Screech! The phoenix incarnation let out another loud cry and turned into a petrel in a storm. It plunged into the area of violent magic attacks without fear. The gray smoke entwined around its wings began to wander around its body. Every time a magic attack came, the gray smoke would swim over to block it. The power of fate that had turned into gray smoke had long been mastered by List. This was a power on the same level as the colorful chain. The colorful chain could bind the dragon's mind, and the gray smoke could naturally resist the attacks of the mental world. Through the tornado, through the lava rain, through the tsunami, through the bubbling pus. Finally, the 42nd step was all crossed by List's phoenix incarnation. In less than a few minutes, it had already reached the top of the dark blue crystal steps, a square platform. The royal sapphire dragon, entwined by the colorful chain, lay on it. The various spells at the bottom of the steps had dissipated. On the square platform, List stood in front of Rise's dragon head and returned to his human form. Rise, do you understand now? You and I are destined to be one. There may be some twists and turns in the process, but everything has already been arranged. With that, he leaped lightly onto the dragon's back, found the dragon tooth terrace and sat down with a smile. At the same time in the real world, List, who was riding on the back of the sleeping royal sapphire dragon, suddenly opened his eyes. The outcome is set, /33 9 Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 1096. The Dragon Knight had already succeeded by winning the Battle of Souls. List stroked the beautiful blue scales of the royal sapphire dragon, Rise, who was gradually recovering, his heart heavy with a sense of harvest. The thread of fate that was pulling Rise had disappeared without a trace. New threads of fate flickered around him, but he didn't feel it carefully. He had been running around for half a year for Rise, and now he needed a little rest to catch his breath. He turned over and jumped off the Dragon Fong platform. He began to look carefully around the sleeping royal sapphire dragon, admiring every curve and every scale of the dragon's body. Rise, oh Rise, although you are unconscious, the brief mind integration connection still gave me a certain understanding of you. You can not only produce expensive royal sapphire, but you are also a powerful combat aid. You are only 200 years old, but you can protect the Flame family for at least 600 years. It was said that after the age of 800, dragons would enter old age and leave the country that provided for them, fly to the Dragon Valley, where no one knew where it existed, and wait for the end of their life. At present, most of List's dragons were still considered young. Bone dragons, unknown age. After all, they were a different species among dragons, unable to be classified as metal dragons, gem dragons, elemental dragons, or sacred dragons or evil dragons. Light green gem dragons more than 400 years old. Gray-mouthed iron dragons more than 300 years old. Mountain copper dragons more than 200 years old. Royal sapphire dragons more than 200 years old. Invisible dragons more than 80 years old. Aluminum dragons more than 50 years old. Fire dragons 5 years old, but already looked as old as 50 or 60 years old. Water dragons 2 years old. Elemental dragons were different from ordinary metal dragons and gem dragons. As long as there was a sufficient supply of supreme magic, they could grow very quickly and enter adulthood in advance. Other dragons couldn't, even sacred dragons. For example, the invisible dragon bard couldn't shorten his adulthood no matter how much supreme magic he consumed. This was probably related to the production of dragons. Elemental dragons didn't produce, and all their magic was consumed by themselves. The excess magic of metal dragons and gem dragons would mostly be transformed into minerals in the form of gems and metals. The invisible dragon among sacred dragons would also consume magic to produce spatial gems. Probably the same was true of dusk dragons, which produced time gems. The emerald dragon might have consumed magic power to nourish the mind fruit tree. The fairy dragon wasn't sure, and neither was the smoke dragon. List didn't understand whether these two sacred dragons needed magic power as supplements. It was really difficult for him to confuse the power of destiny with magic power, and it was even more difficult to think that taking potions could increase the power of destiny. The power of fate was too mysterious. There's also the evil dragon, the Mr. Dragon, and the moon dragon that's been passed down for generations among the moonslayers. I wonder what's so special about these dragons. His thoughts were a little scattered, and soon he returned his gaze to the royal sapphire dragon. Rise, who was breathing steadily, had already scabbed over his wounds and would soon heal. The physique of a dragon was strong, and its recovery ability was astonishing. Unless its soul was injured, it could easily recover. Rise's magic can overflow and then form a magic-like attack move. Restricted by the efficiency of the use of magic, the power is not strong. But now it's different. With me helping Rise complete the process of magic power forming runes and constructing magic, it will inevitably become a true dragon mage. No, it should be a dragon mage, a supreme magic level dragon mage. List envisioned enthusiastically. With his identity as a royal sapphire dragon knight, once the magic development was completed, his combat power should be similar to a chi riding a unicorn. Coupled with the powerful physique of a dragon and the power of dragon breath, his combat power would be close to that of an adult fire dragon knight. At that time, I'll be the shadowless king of the dragons when I ride Bart, and I'll be the dragon berserker when I ride Leo, and I'll be the dragon magic shooter when I ride Rise, and I'll be the dragon magic shooter, and I'll be able to destroy the world with my magic. Just thinking about it was satisfying. So, he fantasized for a full quarter of an hour before barely restraining his thoughts. Looking at the darkening sky, he began to take out the necessities for camping in the wild from his space ring. Let's camp here tonight. When Rise wakes up tomorrow, I'll give him a batch of magic potions to help him fully recover. Then I'll return to Flame Island. I'll bring Rise to meet the great elves and test whether any of them like him. The next step is to open a new teleportation magic array. The first teleportation magic array of the Fire Kingdom was the Mind Island Reed Magic Array. This was a trade route to the Sapphire Duchy, Eagle Kingdom and Steel Ridge Kingdom. The second teleportation magic array was the Realgar City Jade Mountain Magic Array. This was a strategic route to the Blizzard Mountain Duchy and the Yellowstone Plain Kingdom. At present, it was only in contact with the Blizzard Mountain Duchy. At the same time, the Realgar Jade Teleportation Magic Array was the golden passage for the Fire Kingdom to set foot on the legendary continent. The undeveloped virgin land of Realgar Plain around Realgar City would gradually prosper as more and more nobles were infeft here. The two teleportation magic arrays in succession had exhausted a large number of magic materials stored by the kingdom. It would take time to gather a new batch of magic materials. Moreover, the kingdom had been too busy during the previous period of founding the kingdom and had no time to pay attention to the construction of the teleportation magic array. Thus, the third one had been delayed until now. This teleportation magic array had been determined to be the Chalcopyrite Crater Magic Array, or the Yellow Fire Teleportation Magic Array for short. The two ends of the teleportation magic array were the crater natural nodes of the endless volcanoes of Flame Island and the Chalcopyrite natural nodes of the fertile land of the Eagle Kingdom, where Aluminum Dragon Connor originally lived. Once this teleportation magic array was completed, it could quickly reach the southwestern wilderness of the Eagle Kingdom. As a result, the majestic Jade Teleportation Magic Array connected the southern border of the Eagle Kingdom, The yellow fire teleportation magic array connected the southwestern border of the Eagle Kingdom, and the heartwood teleportation magic array connected the southeastern coast of the Eagle Kingdom. The 3 teleportation magic arrays surrounded half of the Eagle Kingdom. When the time was right, the Fire Kingdom would quickly complete the annexation of the Eagle Kingdom. Comparing the size of the Fire Kingdom and the Eagle Kingdom, this plan seemed like a snake swallowing an elephant. However, the essence of the battle between the kingdoms was the war of dragon slaying. As long as List won the war of dragon slaying, he could quickly lead his giant dragon army to suppress the entire Eagle Kingdom by relying on the 3 teleportation magic arrays that could shuttle quickly. In the end, he would complete the magnificent feat of a snake swallowing an elephant. The nobles of the Eagle Kingdom, big and small, would be deterred by the dragons and would wisely choose to surrender to the Fire Kingdom. However, to be on the safe side, in order to complete the plan of annexing the Eagle Kingdom in one go, I must subdue all the dragons and Dragon Knight of the Eagle royal family. It would be best if I could secretly build a few teleportation magic arrays inside the Eagle Kingdom so that my dragons can quickly intercept the dragons of the Eagle royal family. List had a grand plan. He not only wanted to annex the Eagle Kingdom, but he also wanted to snatch all the dragons of the Eagle royal family. However, if the dragons and Dragon Knight wanted to escape, it would be difficult to catch them in time. There were many conditions that needed to be met. First, he must build a teleportation magic array in the Eagle Kingdom and rely on the teleportation magic array to travel quickly and intercept the escaping dragons and Dragon Knight. Relying on the invisible dragon bard to travel through space alone, although it was fast enough, it would be difficult for him to use the group of dragons. Only when the dragons acted together could List defeat all the Dragon Knight of a kingdom by himself. Second, he must keep track of the movements of the dragons and Dragon Knight at all times. This required a chi to release space magic beacons to locate each dragon, and then rely on the invisible dragon bard to sense the location of the beacons and adjust the route in time to catch them. Third, in order to conquer the dragons as soon as possible, the mystical dragon's soul fruit was essential. Now a chi was studying the emerald dragon's hind legs, and he believed that he would soon be able to cultivate the mystical dragon's soul fruit in large quantities. After giving one to Rise, he now only had 1 mystical dragon's soul fruit in stock. Fourth, there were still many conditions, but List did not continue to think about it. The annexation of the Eagle Kingdom was a grand plan that had to be planned carefully. Once the action began, he would be able to forcefully annex them with lightning speed, not giving the Dragon Knight of the Eagle royal family a chance to escape. During the preparation for the action, everything will be as usual. Once a year there will be an expansion order. Snatch it. Not only will it increase my power by cutting the other party's flesh, but it will also numb the Eagle royal family. After thinking about the plot for a while, the sky gradually darkened. List turned on the magic light bulb for field lighting, took out a small round table, and then brought out the still steaming delicacies one by one. Along with the delicious Bampo milk tea, he began tonight's dinner. With the space ring that allowed everything to remain still, he could still eat the delicious food cooked by Mrs. Abby while he was away. But looking at the 10 space rings on his 10 fingers and the several space gems strung around his neck, he knew that even if he went away for a few months, he would not lack food and drink. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, he lay on the rocking chair to digest. Tonight, the moon was not visible, but the starry sky was bright. A Milky Way loomed, causing him to feel slightly homesick. Where is the planet I am on now? Is it still in the Milky Way? Maybe one day I can land on the moon of this planet, but going back to Earth? I'm afraid it's impossible. /33 9 Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 1097. The next day, List had breakfast and practiced his combat energy for a while. It was not until the sun was high in the sky that the royal sapphire dragon Rise woke up from its slumber. Its body was still very weak and it lay prostrate on the ground, its eyes fixed on List. Don't look at me like that, Rise. Here are all the potions I've brought. Take them to nourish your body. When your body recovers, I'll take you back to the Kingdom of Fire to start a new life. As for now, I know you have a lot of topics to talk about. He took out a large bundle of potions and placed them in front of Rise. Rise did not accept the potions, nor did he make a sound. He continued to stare at List. If it could, it wanted to spit out a laser dragon's breath and turn List into ashes. But the battle of the mind had already been completed, and it could not resist the restrictions of the mind. It could only silently vent the resentment that had accumulated in its heart. It did not like List. It had not liked him from the beginning. Especially when it thought of how it had been brutally trampled, then drugged and confused, losing the Dragon Fang platform, and being forced to lose to an insignificant human in the battle of the mind, it almost had a heart attack. In the battle of the mind, Liszt had won fair and square, climbing all the stairs and reaching the final platform. But this did not increase Rise's approval of Liszt. The reason was simple. It did not need a dragon knight in its dragon life. Even if there had to be a dragon knight, it should not be a despicable dragon knight like Liszt. Without paying any price, it had taken a shortcut. The dragon knight it was looking forward to should have resisted the magic baptism, climbed all the stairs with his bare hands with indomitable willpower, and climbed to the top. Instead of turning into a firebird and flying up with a swoosh. This is despicable cheating. Insignificant ant, unforgivable. The blurry telepathic link allowed Liszt to understand Rise's anger. He didn't mind Rise's complaint. The process wasn't important, what was important was the result. There's no rule against tricks in the battle of the mind. Rise, I hope you'll be a dragon that accepts defeat. Oh. Blue-white electric sparks came out of Rise's nostrils. He really wanted to spit out laser dragon breath. The potions here are very beneficial for the recovery of your body. You are now my dragon. In the future, the Fire Kingdom will provide for you. You don't need to hunt hard anymore. There will be a large amount of potions serving you every day. Liszt glanced at Rise, who was still panting with rage, and decisively flipped over. He sat down on the dragon tooth platform and instantly completed the mind as one link. At that moment, the thoughts of the man and the dragon were synchronized. There was me and you and me. Liszt could feel and influence Rise's thoughts, and Rise could also feel and influence Liszt. This was a way of communication that surpassed language, and all differences could be resolved in an instant. Roar. After hundreds of rounds of confrontation, Rise finally compromised and began to swallow the potion on the ground. Liszt, remember, although I lost to you in the battle of the soul, it doesn't mean that I acknowledge you. I refuse to train with you in any form. It was just that Tsundere, as an experienced person, Liszt responded indifferently, don't worry, Rise. From now on I won't force you. I will seriously move you. Time would change everything. There was no need to be impatient. Rise rested until the afternoon. With the replenishment of the potion, Rise's body quickly recovered. Of course, the supreme magic still needed time to recuperate. At least he could fly now. Considering Rise's face, Liszt did not continue to ride him. Instead, he switched to the invisible dragon Bard. He also did not choose to ride the gray-mouthed iron dragon Orn. Orn's body was huge, and the dragon tooth platform was not comfortable to sit on. Bard was 16 meters long and had a wingspan of 16 meters, 1 meter longer than when they first met. The position of the dragon tooth platform was very suitable for riding. Moreover, his petite body did not block his vision easily. Of course, when riding a dragon, the vision of a human and a dragon could be combined. Let's go to Realgar City, Liszt ordered. 1 man and 3 dragons quickly flew into the sky and flew toward Realgar City in the clouds. 3 days later, they arrived at Realgar City. They passed through the magic gate of Realgar City under the cover of the night. In addition, they signaled the guard knight in advance to extinguish the lights and drive away the crowd. No one discovered the new royal sapphire dragon. The same was true for the magic gate of Jade Rock Mountain. It quietly shuttled through the night and then kept flying southeast. Of the 9 large islands of the Fire Archipelago, only Mangrove Island and Anchor Island had not been in theft. He planned to raise the royal sapphire dragon on Anchor Island. There were a large number of clowns stationed around Anchor Island. There were also mermaids patrolling. It could keep the secret of the royal sapphire dragon well. 1 day later, Liszt arrived at Anchor Island with Rise. Rise, you will live on Anchor Island for the time being. If you have any needs, just let me know. I will satisfy you. You have a strong vision. When you go out, pay attention to avoid humans. Don't be discovered. You already understand the ambition of the Fire Kingdom. I hope you can cooperate with me. Rise responded indifferently. It was not interested in human hegemony, but it would not hinder Liszt's plan. Roar. It flew around Anchor Island, found a low mountain, and settled down reluctantly. I need a sufficient supply of magic potions. No problem. Liszt simply agreed to supply Rise with magic potions for this period of time. When Rise's body was completely recovered, he would reduce the supply of magic potions as appropriate. The landlord had no surplus food. There were too many dragons to supply, and no amount of magic potions could support 9 dragons. If it weren't for the fire dragon water for Leo and the water dragon water for water dragon water, his magic potions would be even more tight. For the magic potions, this year's expansion order must be carried out in advance. The Eagle Kingdom has a rich heritage. It is natural for them to share the burden of raising dragons for me. The royal sapphire dragon Rise settled down. List returned to the palace of stars, sun, and moon to deal with official business for the day. He was going to take his great elves to get along with Rise for a few days to see if any great elf suddenly fell in love with Rise and triggered evolution. Ella, how are you getting along with Winnie? In the valley, List saw the great thorn elf lying on the head of the bone dragon Winnie. List, you're back. Winnie is a good dragon, but I haven't fallen in love with her yet. Ella saw List, and there was a hint of exhaustion in her excitement. She had tried her best to fall in love with every dragon, but the results were not satisfactory. None of the dragons made her fall in love with them. In particular, the bone dragon Winnie was the friendliest of all the dragons. After all, Winnie's predecessor was a human, but she did not fall in love with her. Since you haven't fallen in love, then take it easy. I'll take you to see a new dragon. Is there a new dragon? Let it line up first. I still have to get along with the water dragon Wouter. Ella waved her hand. Her attitude was not very enthusiastic. Being forced to get along with the dragon for a long time had exhausted her. Well, you go back to the palace and rest for a while. Don't tire yourself out. I know. Ella responded with a sigh, and then forced herself to cheer up. Wow, Ella will definitely evolve into a dragon elf and become the real elf housekeeper of the sun, moon, and stars palace. The bone dragon Winnie looked at Ella dotingly and communicated with List through the dragon heart code. Ella is so cute. I hope it evolves into a dragon elf soon. List, did you get another dragon? Well, I met it when I went out. It's a royal sapphire dragon. His name is Rise. Royal sapphire dragon? The bone dragon Winnie raised her head. This is a very powerful sapphire dragon. I remember that the magic goat family once had a royal sapphire. With this royal sapphire, my ancestors fought side by side with the first sapphire Grand Duke. Recalling the past, it made her a little sad. However, it quickly recovered from the past and said, "Congratulations, Your Majesty. You are fully deserving of the title of Son of Glory. The Fire Kingdom will rise under your leadership." The Nine Heavens Emperor. Chapter 1098. Vani's compliment made List feel very comfortable. Bone dragons were relatively weak in combat, and strictly speaking they couldn't be called dragons. Dragons that couldn't fly were a disgrace to the dragon family, and bone dragons didn't have dragon breath. If it wasn't for Virginia Truth's soul, it would have been a walking corpse. Vani, I heard that you've been doing research with a chi? Yes, Your Majesty. His Excellency Acheron will spend an hour with me every day to study the soul structure of the bone dragon and analyze the power structure of the cursed dragon. Bone dragon Vani replied. The cursed dragon was one of the three evil dragons. A chi in List believed that it had broken the soul barrier and became an existence that surpassed the dragon knight. In order to purify the devil's sea, to study the cursed dragon, and to study the power of the soul, a chi naturally asked Vani to cooperate. If a bone dragon had to be defined, it was a creature made of soul elements similar to the cursed dragon. Have you come up with any results? Not yet. Unfortunately, I've become a bone dragon and it's not convenient for me to do experiments myself. His Excellency Acheron can only spend an hour a day to study me. His Excellency Laird is also very busy and doesn't do much research on the soul. I really hope to unravel the secret of the bone dragon. Becoming a bone dragon made Virginia Truth feel the joy of being alive. However, she was originally a human, so she still hoped to regain her human appearance. There will be a day like that, Vani. You have to believe in a chi. She is the greatest magic shooter of this era. Even in the era of the Moon Empire, she will still be the greatest magic shooter. Your Majesty, I trust His Excellency Acheron without reservation. Then I won't bother you any longer. I still have official business to attend to. List was about to leave when Vani suddenly sent him a telepathic message. Your Majesty, I haven't left the Sun Moon Valley for a few days. I wonder if I can take up some of your time and accompany you around? The blue flames in her dragon eyes flickered. Oh, sure. List's attitude was non-committal. Since the bone dragon Winnie wished for it, he mounted the bone dragon's dragon tooth platform and instantly completed the heart and soul connection. In that instant, my mind and soul collided, and the resonance of the dragon mount transcended the physical body, displaying an incomparably wondrous feeling. Riding a dragon was a very pleasurable thing, especially when it was a bone dragon with a female human soul. They circled around the Sun Moon Mountain range twice. Only then did he bid farewell to bone dragon Winnie. When he returned to the palace of sun, moon and stars, he felt refreshed and comfortable. The next day he summoned all the great elves living in the palace and stuffed them into a large box. He signaled to the invisible dragon bard to grab the large box and fly directly to Anchor Island. After arriving at Anchor Island, they first sent a large amount of potions to the royal sapphire dragon Rise to help it recover. Then he signaled the great elves to carefully sense Rise's aura to see if any great elf could like this beautiful gemstone dragon. Roar! Seeing the countless little flies flying around him, Rise was furious and shouted loudly. List comforted him. Rise, bear with it. You only need to accompany them for 3 days, okay? Don't worry, this kind of thing won't happen repeatedly. Besides, don't you think they're very cute? If dragons are synonymous with power, elves are synonymous with beauty. It was questioning, could Parker, the great kelp elf with a mouth full of sharp teeth, also represent beauty? List looked at Parker, who was lying lazily on a dragon's scale, and smiled awkwardly. Actually, when Parker doesn't smile, he's still very beautiful. Many people in the territory say that he's the handsome little prince of the ocean. As if sensing that someone was saying that he was handsome behind his back, Parker, who was basking in the sun, suddenly turned his head. Seeing that List was also looking at him, he immediately grinned, revealing his sharp teeth. Hey List, the sun today is really handsome just like Parker. That's right. List waved his hand insincerely. Rise couldn't help but roll his eyes, and then he crawled on the ground weakly, too lazy to raise his head to communicate. Then he simply closed his eyes. Out of sight, out of mind. It's only 3 days, he thought helplessly. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. The great potato elf, Kutcher, was the first to shake his head. List, I don't like it. Its scales don't meet my aesthetic standards. Then the great corn elf, Mickey. I can't count its scales, and there are many irregular places, which increases the difficulty of calculation. So List, I can't like it, he said seriously. It said in a serious tone, you should find me a mathematical dragon so that I can study mathematics with it. In fact, he could only count up to 76 so far, which was still far from the 100 mark. In the following 3 days, Bobby the great banana elf, Tick the great corn elf, Nami the great mangrove elf, and most other great elves shook their heads one after another, expressing that they did not like Rise. Looking at the great elves shaking their heads one after another, List sighed in disappointment, feeling that he was biting off more than he could chew. How could it be so easy for dragon elves to trigger evolution? Moreover, these great elves had only been in his hands for a short period of time. The longest one, Parker, was only 6 years old. A great elf could live for 200 years, and they still had a long time to brew and wait for the opportunity to evolve. However, just as he was comforting himself, he suddenly saw another great elf standing on Rise's back. It did not speak, but just stared at the royal sapphire dragon Rise in confusion. Klein, the great calabash elf? List narrowed his eyes and clearly felt a thread of fate flickering around him. One end of this thread of fate was connected to Klein, and the other end was connected to Rise. Could it be that Klein's opportunity to evolve has arrived? This is an exciting surprise, it's actually Klein. Klein in the Lesser Elf era was inconspicuous. Although the calabash was very fun and always reminded List of the Calabash brothers, its use was really limited. It could only be used as a container to hold drinks. However, the value of Klein in the Greater Elf era soared as the nature of magic storage was discovered. It had surpassed the great elves of potions and grains, and was second only to Kenji the great lotus elf who could produce dragon potions. Even the thorn great elf, Ella, who could produce thorns as an auxiliary medicine, was not as valuable as Klein. After repeated research by arcanists, the calabash that could store magic had become the magic battery of the magic world, and a temporary new name replaced the calabash itself, the magic pool. The birth of the magic pool allowed many magical technologies to be realized. Although it was still far from being popularized for civilian use, it was more than enough to set off a magic pool revolution. For military use, the arcanists of the Royal Arcane Academy had developed a magic array that relied on the magic pool to provide energy. In other words, relying on the magic pool and the magic array, ordinary people could also release some magic. This was equivalent to a hot weapon in the magic world. Faced with the impact of the magic pool revolution, List was still in a state of confusion, not knowing whether to support or prohibit it. But there was no doubt that the value of the calabash itself was immeasurable. Once the calabash elf, Klein, evolved into a dragon elf, the output of the calabash was bound to skyrocket. He was very satisfied with the harvest this time. The magic storage gourd is unique to my territory, and the magic pool technology is also in my hands. Klein, work hard to evolve. Chapter 1099. Although the threads of fate had connected Klein, the great calabash elf, and Rise, the royal sapphire dragon, after careful inquiry, List found that Klein's evolutionary opportunity was still very weak, and he had not really fallen in love with this beautiful sapphire dragon. I don't know, List, I think it. Rise is very beautiful and special, but I don't know if I like it. Well, I understand, Klein. You only have a certain affection for Rise now because you haven't gotten familiar with each other yet. List comforted. In fact, he guessed that it should be because Klein had only become a great elf for a short time, and his body had not yet fully developed. This led to the vague evolutionary opportunity. But the power of fate had already captured its fate with Rise, which meant that sooner or later, it would really fall in love with Rise. So he added, how about this, you go back with me first. Every time I come to train with Rise, you follow me until you completely fall in love with him, and then move in for long-term contact. Okay, I really need time to digest. I really hope that I can evolve into a dragon elf before that bastard, Ella. Klein clenched his fists, narrowed his eyes, and began to imagine how he would treat Ella after he became a dragon elf. Should he beat her up or beat her up? The noisy great elves, along with the invisible dragon bard, rose into the air and left Anchor Island. The royal sapphire dragon looked at the quiet sky and let out a long sigh of relief. I breathed the free, sweet air again. The weather in June was getting hotter and hotter. The Fire Kingdom was developing steadily, and the focus of List's work had changed from training with the gray iron dragon Orn to training with the aluminum dragon Connor. Up to now, among his many dragons, the light emerald dragon Ethan had long completed the spiritual imprint and became Emily Flame's mount. The fire dragon Leo and the invisible dragon Bard had also completed the spiritual imprint, but List did not find a new knight for them, because he had reserved both dragons for himself to ride. Bard's ability to travel through space was an excellent choice for a mount. Leo had the potential to break through barriers. Now the gray-mouthed iron dragon Orn spirit brand was completed. The only ones left were the mountain copper dragon Marta, the aluminum dragon Connor, the water dragon Wouter, and the royal sapphire dragon Rise. An adult dragon's temperament has already been set, and it will be very difficult to perfect the soul imprint in a short period of time, so Marta and Rise will not be considered for the time being. The young dragon's temperament was still uncertain, so it was easy for it to achieve perfection in the soul imprint. Wouter is still too young, so I'll let him roam freely for a period of time and complete Connor's spirit imprint first. However, he still had to look for a new knight for the gray-mouthed iron dragon Orn before he started his training with the aluminum dragon Connor. A dragon without a knight would not be able to unleash its full power. He summoned the first batch of dragon knight candidates to the Palace of Stars, Sun, and Moon. There were only 3 of them. Nicholas, Hippolyta, de Gaulle, you have not let me down. Especially Nicholas, you already have the title of Sacred Swordsman. The title of Iron Sacred Swordsman is a little vulgar, but I am very optimistic about your talent. List walked in front of Nicholas and patted the young man's shoulder. Iron Sacred Swordsman Nicholas Bellows was 17 years old this year. He was the nephew of the Marquis of Dragon Valley City, Nicole Bellows, and a member of the Iron Knight Bellows family. He was a little ugly, but it did not hinder his superhuman talent. Thank you for your praise, Your Majesty. You are Nicholas' idol, and it is your glory that inspires me to work hard to become a dragon knight, Nicholas said solemnly. This flattery was a little superficial, but it did not hinder List from being very happy when he heard it. I believe that you will become an outstanding dragon knight. Then he looked at de Gaulle, who was beside him. De Gaulle did not have a surname. He was the son of a commoner, born in the Sapphire Duchy's Hot Springs Island. His father used to be a serf in the Eagle Kingdom and was sold to Hot Springs Island, where he was raised as an Earth Knight by the Count of Hot Springs Island. Unfortunately, he died in battle during a development order, leaving behind a posthumous son, de Gaulle. His mother did not remarry, but relied on her meager family fortune to raise him. After List eliminated the Count of Hot Springs Island, the young de Gaulle followed his mother to live in the Fire Kingdom. 2 years ago, when he was selected for the Dragon Knight program, he was only a 12-year-old elite Earth Knight. Now he had become a 14-year-old ordinary Sky Knight. De Gaulle, you have outstanding talent, but what I value more is your tenacity and your filial piety to your mother. Without my mother's upbringing and teaching, there would be no de Gaulle today, the young man replied. But don't be too arrogant. List heard that when de Gaulle was training in the Royal Knight Academy, his behavior was rather arrogant. Perhaps it was because he was too self-abased when he was young, but now he was too conceited. If someone else said that about him, he would definitely put on a straight face and reply, I became a Sky Knight at the age of 14. What about you? However, in front of the legendary Dragon Knight list, he was nothing. Thus he replied honestly, "Yes, your majesty. I will be humble and cautious and train diligently." List nodded and shifted his gaze to Hippolyta, who had already grown into a young lady. The last time he went to the Royal Knight Academy to take a look at the next generation, his evaluation of Hippolyta was that she was a beauty in the making. Her appearance was slender and graceful, but her wheat-colored skin was somewhat lacking. But now Hippolyta's skin was gradually whitening, and her body had completely grown. Her breasts were not large, but they were full and erect. Her waist was strong and slender, and the curve of her buttocks was even more alluring. Her long legs were slender and straight, and she was beginning to transition from a girl to a woman. She had the demeanor of a beauty. It was said that some busybodies privately called her the flower of the killer moon, along with Emily Flamingo, the flower of flames, and Paris Flamingo, the flower of jewels. They were known as the three golden flowers of the kingdom of fire. As for the noble Chi, no one dared to call her that in private. "I heard that you've been learning from Emily recently?" List asked with a smile. Hippolyta's large eyes shone with admiration as she replied, "Yes, your majesty. Her highness has taught me many of the Sky Knight's battle techniques." Her talent was outstanding, but she was still lacking compared to Nicholas and de Gaulle. She had only recently advanced. "With Emily's guidance, I'm at ease." List nodded and did not continue the conversation. He returned to his throne made of magic metal and said solemnly, "All of you need to become a perfect Sky Knight to have a chance to interact with dragons. However, the Kingdom of Fire is a young kingdom and youth means more opportunities. I'm prepared to open the Grey Iron Dragon to you." "Ah!" Three cries rang out. The three youths' breathing quickened as they stared at List. Everyone wanted to have a chance to interact with dragons. List was very satisfied with the youths' excitement. He did not keep them in suspense and said directly, "I'll give the three of you a fair chance to interact with dragons for half a year. You'll have to attack the Grey Iron Dragon on your own. Then wait for Aoun to choose one of you or none of you." Not every member of the Dragon Knight clan could become a Dragon Knight. The probability of them succeeding was actually very low. "Thank you, your majesty." The youths replied excitedly. Go and prepare. Report to Her Highness Emily. She'll be fully responsible for arranging for you to interact with the Grey Iron Dragon." List dismissed the three youths. Looking at the youths' high-spirited backs, he shook his head slightly. Based on his understanding of Aoun, the three of them probably wouldn't be able to win Aoun's approval. Nicholas was too ugly, de Gaulle was too arrogant, and Hippolyta was too weak. Let's hope that one of them can create a miracle. "I need to nurture more Dragon Knight to help me." The day before yesterday, the Royal Knight Academy, various Knight Academies, and the feudal nobles have already reported outstanding young knight to me. Then, quickly select the second batch of geniuses to join the Dragon Knight plan. Chapter 1100. The Royal Knight Academy was the largest Knight Academy in the Fire Kingdom. The royal title indicated that it was on the same level as the Royal Arcane Academy. It was not only a school, but also the superior unit of the Knight Academies in various regions. The Knight Academies in various regions would only teach students up to Earth Knight before they graduated. After that, if an Earth Knight wanted to further their studies, they could only go to the Royal Knight Academy. This was similar to studying for a master's degree or a PhD. Therefore, the Royal Knight Academy recommended many outstanding knight slots, more than the number of outstanding Knight Academies and knight recommended by the feudal nobles combined. They were all youths who had become Earth Knight or had the potential to become Sky Knight at a young age. What List needed to do was to select the most outstanding ones to join the Dragon Knight Reserve program. It seems that there are not enough outstanding seedlings. There are not many who are comparable to Emily, and there are not many who are comparable to de Gaulle, Nicholas, and Hippolyta. It seems that it will be difficult for this batch of Dragon Knight Reserve program members to become a Dragon Knight. But speaking of which, can Nicholas and the others really become Dragon Knight? Shaking his head, he did not think about this problem anymore. If they could become Dragon Knight, it was worth celebrating. If they could not become Dragon Knight, then he would continue to train them generation by generation. One day there would be a new generation of Dragon Knight. Moreover, in a few years, he and the Fire Dragon Leo might be able to break through the barrier and become an invincible barrier knight. He might even be able to conquer the entire legendary continent by himself. Therefore, the Dragon Knight Reserve program has to be carried out. Leo and I cannot fall behind in our training. It is a pity that Leo is still underage and has not reached the peak of his strength. It is difficult for him to break through the barrier. I have to find more volcanoes for Leo to absorb volcano super magic to speed up his growth. He selected 10 talented young knight, 8 males and 2 females, to join the Dragon Knight Reserve program. List handed the list to Emily Flames, who had rushed to the Palace of Stars, Moon and Sunday. He had already handed the Dragon Knight plan to Emily. Take this list. I'll leave the little ones in your care. I will, Your Majesty. Emily took the list and nodded. She then looked at List with sparkling eyes. I'm already 17 this year. Oh. List responded with a careful look. The first female Dragon Knight in the legendary continent was no longer the skinny little girl she used to be. Compared to Hippolyta, the Moon Killer Flower, who had yet to reach adulthood, Emily, the Flame Flower, had a more outstanding bearing. Her Dragon Knight aura added a lot more points to her. She wasn't as voluptuous as the Gem Flower Paris, but her slightly exotic face had a different kind of charm. Furthermore, Emily had practically been groomed by him. The sense of accomplishment of witnessing her growth made Emily hold an important place in his heart. His fiery gaze swept over Emily's body, as if he could see every inch of her body through her clothes. Sensing his burning gaze, Emily didn't avoid it. Instead, she looked at List's eyes with eager anticipation, breathing heavily. A moment later, List stretched out his hand, lifted Emily's chin and said softly, "Then you'll stay here tonight and grow up." At the end of June, good news came from the Royal Arcane Academy. After more than a year of cultivation, the first batch of bloodline fruits cultivated by stimulating the golden apple tree had finally ripened. There were a total of 16 bloodline fruits in the first batch. The uses of these bloodline fruits had long been allocated. 10 would be used to cultivate violent dogs into blizzard beasts, and 5 would be used to cultivate livestock into World of Warcraft. The last one was reserved for Lolth, the rainbow whale. Chirp. Lolth was raised in the Mermaid City. This low-level dragon was close to humans. Back on Black Horse Island, it was List's exclusive sea mount. However, with the growth of a chi and the acquisition of the Mermaid's Heart contract, Lolth could no longer provide riding services for List. Like Fiery Dragon, Blizzard Beast Dosen, Lightning and Chocobo Loki, it had long been unable to keep up with List's footsteps. It could only be raised. Fiery Dragon retired early and became a full-time breeder. Dosen was now leading a growing pack of blizzard beasts and becoming an important member of the Blizzard Orders of Chivalry in the Burning Legion. Lightning was the ceremonial symbol of List's inspection of the Burning Orders of Chivalry. In order to express his closeness to the members of the Burning Orders of Chivalry, he needed to choose a black blood horse as a mount. Of course, it was only for military parades and other occasions. It was impossible to ride Lightning into battle. Loki was given to Emily by List. After Emily successfully rode the dragon, Loki was transferred to Paris. As for Lolth, after being brought from Black Horse Island to Flame Island, she had been raised by List in the Mermaid City and had been served well. Unfortunately, like Loki, she had never found a new 7-colored whale. She could only live alone. Lolth, eat it. Once you're done, you'll evolve into a powerful rainbow whale. List stood by the water and gave Lolth a bloodline fruit with water attributes. He then patted Lolth's big head. Evolution can't get you out of loneliness, but at least you can live for a few more decades. The lifespan of dragons was not short. Low-level dragons could live for decades, and it was normal for mid-level dragons to live for hundreds of years. Chirp, chirp. After eating the bloodline fruit, Lolth was very happy. She quickly reacted and began to swim around in the water excitedly. Duke Buru-Bushi, please take care of this 7-colored whale, List said to the mermaid who was watching from the side. As you wish, Your Majesty. Buru-Bushi nodded and then said, I've carefully observed Lolth's little dolphin. If my guess is correct, there were many dolphins like this in the Moon Empire. They were called sea tigers, the favorite mounts of the Nagas. Maybe there are also sea tigers in the Devil's Sea. Sea tigers? So it's another ancient species. No wonder there are almost no other 7-colored whales in the sea. List believed Buru-Bushi's guess. He quickly thought of the Chocobo Loki. He wondered if chocobos were an ancient species. Unfortunately, there was a gap between the Moon Empire and the modern era. Many species and knowledge had disappeared in the long river of history. Suddenly, he thought of a smoke mission reward that was almost forgotten. There's a natural node under the Palace of Stars. It's the entrance to the ancient ruins. It's related to the ancestors of the Moon Slayers, the 6 magic shooters who built the statues. I wonder if the ruins contain the secrets of the ancient civilization. In the stories of the Moon Slayers, their ancestors fought with the moon dragon and killed it. There were indeed many ancient dragon skeletons in the Flame Islands and this part of the sea. For example, the important mining area of the Fire Kingdom, the Dragon Pit Mine. This meant that a great war must have happened here. Therefore, the ruins might contain the secrets of the ancient era. Unfortunately, the spatial rift is blocking the entrance to the ruins. For now, Achi hasn't found a way to clear the spatial rift. She can only look at the entrance but can't go in. List was a little depressed. The two dragons he relied on the most, the invisible dragon Bard and the fire dragon Leo, were both underage. Alas, time waited for no man. Chapter 1101. The evolution of Lolth, the rainbow whale, was completed in just half a month. She didn't change much except that her body grew by a third. She also learned a new water magic, Water Wave Shield. It was a very common water magic. Chirp chirp. Loltha's life was as happy as ever after the evolution. Perhaps she didn't understand that she was a single dolphin. Or that she could play with human zookeepers and not worry about food and water. That was all the happiness she could understand. All in all, Lolth seemed happier than List because she didn't need to worry about the mundane affairs of the human world. Today's war will be handled by the outer pavilion. Emily will be in charge of the specific affairs. When the Orders of Chivalry arrive, I will secretly protect the kingdom's Orders of Chivalry from the Dragon Knight of the Kingdom of Eagle. He gave the authorization to the Orders of Chivalry in a meeting of the outer pavilion. Then he had a short video conference with Yevich Waterpeanut and Amat Ice Shield, who were far away in Snow Wind Mountain Duchy. Yevich, is the second prince of Snow Wind Mountain at the end of his rope? Yes, your majesty. The first prince, Spot, colluded with a dragon knight of the Kingdom of Yellowstone and got the help of a large number of elite knight. The second prince, C. Carter's Orders of Chivalry has been seriously thwarted. He can no longer compete for the position of Duke of Snow Wind Mountain, Yevich replied. The knight who sent the letter to condemn you. Was it Spot's idea, or was it the Dragon Knight's idea? List asked again. After the first prince, Spot Cornflower, defeated the second prince, C. Carter's Orders of Chivalry, Yevich and Amat received a letter from Spot, accusing the Kingdom of Fire of meddling in the internal affairs of Snow Wind Mountain Duchy. It was obvious that the Kingdom of Fire was the one who interfered, not the Kingdom of Eagle. Amat replied, Your Majesty, according to my understanding of Spot, if it weren't for the Dragon Knight, he wouldn't have exposed the existence of the Kingdom of Fire. He would only continue to acquiesce in the actions of the Kingdom of Eagle. This was the tragedy of a small country. Even though the two princes of Snowstorm Mountain Duchy already knew that Yevich and the others were Knight of the Fire Kingdom, they still had to pretend to be deaf and dumb and admit that Yevich was pretending to be a member of the Eagle Kingdom. Otherwise, if they really shed all pretense of cordiality, the Fire Kingdom might just launch a large-scale invasion. There was a moment of silence. In the end, List said, since the Dragon Knight of Yellowstone Plain has intervened, then the attack on Snowwind Mountain Principality has temporarily come to an end. However, you can invite C. Carter to join the Fire Kingdom. Tell him that I will allow him to become a marquis and help him reclaim his dukedom when the time is right. Recently, he had to concentrate on conquering the Eagle Kingdom and did not intend to provoke the Yellowstone Kingdom for the time being. Moreover, the Blizzard Mountain Principality had almost been hollowed out after years of civil war. Out of the 6 to 7 million people, more than 2 million had been secretly moved here, which was 1/3 of the total population. If this continued, the Snow Wind Principality would really be stripped of its sheepskin. Therefore it was good to take a break. He would first keep the second prince, C. Carter, as an excuse to intervene in the Blizzard Mountain Principality, and then wait for the right time to continue to extort him. As you wish, your majesty. I will arrange for C. Carter to surrender to you as soon as possible. Yevich accepted the order. List nodded. When the Blizzard Mountain Principality is finished, your focus will be on the construction of the Realgar Plain. This wilderness is the springboard for the Fire Kingdom to advance to the legendary continent. You must seize the time to cultivate it well. Yes, your majesty. Now the Fire Kingdom has a population of 8 million. My feudal nobles and I account for about 5 million people, and the feudal nobles account for the remaining 3 million people. It's not enough, not even 10 million people. It's even worse than some rich principalities. There's still a long way to go. In July, various orders of chivalry began to gather, preparing to march to the hinterland of the Eagle Kingdom and launch the first development order of the Fire Kingdom. List did not pay attention to the development order. After he successfully helped the great Calabash spirit, Klein fall in love with the royal sapphire dragon rise, he went with a chi to the fertile land south of the former Grey Iron Duchy. There, the chalcopyrite volcanic crater magic transmission circle was being built. The yellow flame transmission circle was temporarily not open to the public and was only used for military purposes. For example, a large number of blood servants would be sent from here in the early stages. These bats in the dark would go to the surrounding countries to collect information. With the help of a chi, the cultivation difficulty of the blood servants was reduced, and their ability to hide was improved. Therefore, under the Burning Legion there was a growing blood orders of chivalry. Under the hard work of the Marchioness of Reed City, Dawn Daybreak, the blood servants of the blood orders of chivalry had more than 360 members. They were distributed in the 3 kingdoms and the surrounding principalities. They patiently lurked and used magic platforms to communicate, continuously passing information so that List could keep track of the movements of the surrounding countries. The Iron and Steel Ridge royal family has recently been close to the Eagle royal family. There have been 2 secret meetings between the members of the royal family. It seems that they are plotting against me. The Blast Furnace Castle royal family is relatively stable. They don't participate much and focus on fighting against the Fallen Leaf Kingdom in the west. Further west of the Fallen Leaf Kingdom is the Noble Frost Kingdom. Now that the blood servants have just arrived, it will take some time to collect information about the Noble Frost Kingdom. When I complete the unification of the northeast corner of the legendary continent, it will be the Noble Frost Kingdom's turn. Great Emperor Jupiter, you dared to send people to assassinate me. It would be impolite not to return the favor. When Bard comes of age, I will personally help you arrange everything. List had never been a magnanimous person. If there was enmity, he would take revenge, and he would think about revenge all day long. Especially this kind of enmity that involved life and death. Of course, it was never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. For the time being, his strength was not strong enough, so revenge on the great Emperor Jupiter could be put aside. Brother, the magic formation has been opened. The chalcopyrite magical door will be open for a short time. Now you and Bard can follow the established plan to open the wormhole space and set up the transmission circle. A chi's voice woke up the distracted List. After coming back to his senses, he and the invisible dragon Bard quickly passed through the natural node and came to the world outside the material world. Focusing his thoughts to stimulate the space magic, he connected the chalcopyrite magical door and the volcanic crater magical door together, and opened up a wormhole space that could be traveled at will. In this way, after a chi's finishing touches, the yellow flames transmission circle was completed. The rest of the work, such as opening a stronghold, could be directly handed over to the outer pavilion. List took a chi and left the land of fertility directly. He did not return to the Fire Kingdom, but went deep into the southwest hinterland of the Eagle Kingdom. Bard flew at the material boundary. List was riding on the Dragon Fong platform with a chi lying in his arms. Next to him was Charlie the unicorn. From time to time he would look at List with disdain. Every time this happened, Charlie would be very angry. The pure girl he recognized was being tainted bit by bit. And he did not have the ability to change all this and could only accept it passively. A chi put her hand on List's chest and enjoyed twisting her petite, soft body. Brother, we will stay here for a few days. The mermaids will be back soon, and a chi promised them to purify the sea. There is no hurry to purify the sea. Let's leave these mermaids to dry first. I will decide the specific time. List was resentful of the mermaids. The volcano that the blood servant found is not big, but the magma is very rich, enough for Leo to absorb for 2 to 3 months. His trip this time was to send the fire dragon Leo to the newly discovered magma volcano to help him grow. After calculating for a while, he continued, to make it easier to go back and forth, I will look for natural nodes around the volcano. This will take about 1 or 2 days, which is equivalent to 1 or 2 nights in the wild. Don't always think about work. It is rare for you to travel, so relax yourself. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 1102. The fire dragon Leo dived into the magma. It had not absorbed the volcano supreme magic for many days and was already suffocated. The dragon potion, fire dragon water, could not satisfy its appetite at all. Then List looked for natural nodes around the volcano. Every natural node was related to the supreme demon incident, and there might be important existences hidden in them. For example, metal mines, dragon bones, gem mines, and the remains of divine objects. However, he did not find a single natural node within 300 kilometers of the volcano. Maybe there are fewer supreme magic events in the legendary continent, so there are fewer natural nodes. The Flame Islands and the Shell Sea are the battlefields of ancient wars, so there are so many natural nodes. Finally, 2 days later, he found a natural node near a city 500 kilometers to the northeast. Unfortunately, there was a human castle nearby. Even if there were any minerals around, they could not be mined. However, it was enough for the invisible dragon bard to pass through. Sooner or later, the Eagle Kingdom would be his. At that time, he would carefully investigate all the natural nodes. "Brother, are we going back?" Achi had been accompanying List. On the first day, she could put down her work and enjoy the scenery, but on the second day she began to miss the laboratory. She had several experimental projects waiting for her to preside over. List shook his head helplessly. "Since you can't wait to go back, then let's go back. However, Achi, you have to remember that the truth is endless. Some truths were discovered in the past, and there may be more truths waiting to be discovered. You have to learn to know when to stop. We still have life to enjoy." Achi knows. "Brother, don't worry about Achi. Achi and you both have a long life. There is still a lot of time to enjoy. 400 to 500 years is indeed long, but it is also short. We still have to enjoy ourselves." List smiled. He knew that it was difficult to persuade Achi. This little siren had long been addicted to the ocean of magic and could not extricate herself. He could only use external forces to interfere. In the future, he must find time to disturb Achi's magic experiments and force her to relax and enjoy life. If magic is the only companion in her life, it will be very regrettable. It was I who led Achi to the wrong path of magic. I have the responsibility to give her more beautiful memories. Not long after Achi returned to the laboratory, the 5 mermaids who were patrolling the sea finally returned. The Marquis of the Fishermen, Gulvig, the Marquis of the Water, Tibidas, the Marquis of the Trench, Sharawala, the fugitive Marquis Viswendi, and the lost Marquis Kiki Lish. List did not receive them immediately. Instead, he arranged for the Duke of Saltwater, Buruposi, and the Marquis of Great West, Etnia, to prepare the ceremony for them on the sea. At that time, he would meet the 5 mermaids at the conferring ceremony and arrange their jobs. "His Majesty is very dissatisfied with all of you, no, including me." Etnia clearly conveyed List's attitude. "His Majesty freed us from the seal. He gave us a new life and mercifully allowed us to go on a tour. However, we repaid him by not returning on time. We just want to know more about the current sea. There's no need for your Majesty to be angry. Of course, I am grateful to him for rescuing me. I will work for him and manage the sea, but as a follower, I also have the right to control my own life," Shalawala said. "This is no longer the era of the mermaids, Shalawala. But the sea still needs us mermaids to manage, doesn't it?" Etnia glanced at Shalawala. "I think it's because we've been asleep for too long that we can't keep up with the changes of the times, causing us mermaids to lose the respect we should have for the human king. Or perhaps His Majesty has been too kind to us, causing us to lose the judgment we should have." Gulvig tried to smooth things over. "Etnia, can you speak more clearly?" Etnia originally only conveyed List's attitude and did not intend to kindly remind the other mermaids. Mermaids were not social creatures. Apart from their reproductive relationships, they were all relatively independent individuals. Even in ancient times, the kingdoms of the mermaids were still at war with each other. However, looking at the few mermaids in the world, she finally sighed. "Purifying the sea is our wish, but we need His Excellency Achilles' help. His Majesty can directly influence His Excellency Achilles. Also, His Majesty is not only benevolent." After a pause, she continued, "His Majesty is a self-made king among humans. His greatness lies not only in His kindness to His followers and subjects, but also in His coldness to His enemies. Just 2 dragon knights died in His Majesty's hands. I don't want the mermaids to anger His Majesty." "Really?" Tibidas said a little awkwardly. "Who knows? I just hope that everyone can keep their attitudes in check and not let such a possibility happen." Etnia shook her head. "At the end of this month, your nobility ceremony will be held, and the development order will come soon. I think the mermaids need to act." Gulvig was still quite loyal to List. Back then, she was contaminated by the power of the cursed dragon, and without List and Achi's help, she would have died a long time ago. She directly said, "How should we act, Etnia?" "It's very simple. The Iron Dragon warships are not fast enough, and the magic ships have not been installed yet. After the Fire Kingdom launches the development order, they need to transport a lot of materials, which happens to be what we mermaids are good at. I believe that each of us can control the water and help the fleet move forward. The speed of the mermaids was very fast. They had no problem traveling at 500 kilometers per hour in the sea, and even if they were hauling the entire fleet, they could still reach 100 or 200 kilometers per hour. From the Heart Island to the coastline of the Eagle Kingdom, the distance was at most 700 or 800 kilometers, which meant it would only take 4 or 5 hours. With the speed of the Iron Dragon warships and the Fire Dragon cargo ships, it would take 5 or 6 days to make a round trip. Once the mermaids participated in the transportation, no matter how many materials were transported back. The most important thing was that the Fire Kingdom could also send more manpower and material resources to the Eagle Kingdom to participate in the development order. The mermaids were not stupid and stubborn creatures. After careful consideration, everyone agreed to participate in the development order and perform well. Etnia reported the matter to List. Well done, Marquis Etnia. The mermaids being able to participate in the development order is very helpful to the war. I will remember your contribution. List was very satisfied with Etnia's performance. The mermaids were a strong help if used well, but the premise was that they were used by him. A wise man submits to circumstances, and the mermaids were the same. August 6th of the first year of the fire calendar. With the excuse that Alonso Copernicus, the Dragon Knight of the Eagle Kingdom, attempted to carry out a conspiracy in the Fire Kingdom, the Fire Kingdom officially issued its first war order. They did not use the name Development Order. Instead, they used Disciplinary Order. The Sapphire Grand Duke could use development to describe what he had done. For List, who was a king, development was not high enough, and disciplinary was more in line with his current identity. Disciplinary was a means of the strong over the weak, similar to an adult disciplining a child. After this battle, the hinterland along the coast of the Eagle Kingdom will be completely barren. The next disciplinary order needs to be carefully planned on where to plunder from. Riding on the invisible dragon Bard, List quietly came to the sky above the war zone, silently watching the orders of chivalry that were taking place on the ground. Even without the Dragon Knight to break into the city, the Fire Kingdom's orders of chivalry still crushed most of the noble orders of chivalry. The beast-taming contract brought a large number of World of Warcraft mounts to the Fire Kingdom, and the knight with World of Warcraft mounts could not be too fierce when charging. Invincible. 9 Heavens God Emperor. Chapter 1103. The scene of the war was very fierce, with cavalry charging and defenders shooting arrows. In an instant some castles fell. The large feudal nobles had long been relocated by the Eagle royal family, and the remaining were small nobles who were unwilling to abandon their fiefs. They simply could not raise a large-scale resistance. Therefore the Fire Kingdom had the opportunity to march straight in. Orders of chivalry were invincible all the way. Every castle they passed they would either break it or the nobles would surrender. The logistics team that received the prisoners and serfs began to pack them up. All the supplies were transported by carriages and wheelbarrows to the coast. Then they were transported by the Fire Dragon merchant ship and the Iron Dragon warship. Among the 7 mermaids, only the Duke of the Saltwater Sea, Brooke Bosey, stayed in the Flame Island waters and drove the ugly fish serfs to work. The other 6 mermaids came to participate in the transportation. 3-masted ships, full of supplies or people, returned to the Heart Island. On a mountain at the front line, List and Emily stood side by side. Behind them were 2 dragons sleeping soundly, the Emerald Dragon Isin and the Invisible Dragon Bard. Your Majesty, after this year's punishment orders, there will be no more resources to plunder in the hinterland of the Eagle Kingdom. Where should we plunder next year's punishment orders? Emily asked. We can plunder a number of rich areas along the big rivers, but it will take some time to go back and forth. Fortunately, the domestic shipbuilding industry is booming, and there are enough sailors to support the long journey of orders of chivalry. List narrowed his eyes. However, it is still uncertain whether this is necessary. Emily raised her head and looked at List. Is there any other way? Yes. Mary recently reported to me that the Eagle royal family and the Steel Ridge royal family have met in secret several times. It is possible that they will put aside their former enmity and form an alliance. A large part of List's source of information came from the blood orders of chivalry and a large number of blood servants under Mary Dawn Daybreak. As the first defense minister, although Emily did not have a direct relationship with Mary, she also knew some information. Your Majesty thinks that the Steel Ridge Kingdom is likely to unite with the Eagle Kingdom and take a war stance against our country? Might not be my Fire Kingdom. It might be the Sapphire Duchy. The blood servants discovered the rats of the Steel Ridge Kingdom and poured into the Sapphire Duchy in large quantities. Furthermore, a large number of shipyards have been built in the northern waters of the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom. A considerable number of fleets have been assembled there. In the past, the land kingdoms had no interest in the sea. Only the Eagle Kingdom, in order to eliminate the fly that was the Sapphire Duchy, secretly planned a dragon-slaying war and colluded with the Bull family to build a fleet. However, when List and Achi rose from the sea, the original understanding of the barrenness and desolation of the sea by the kings of the continent was quickly changed. The royal families of the various countries already understood that there might be resources above the sea. Therefore, the royal family of the Iron and Steel Ridge had also begun to secretly plan a fleet of ships. They could cross the sea and invade the Azure Wave Sea at any time. Probably no one dared to touch the Shell Sea. Building a fleet and sending out rats. These are indeed preparations for war. Your Majesty, I need to discuss this with Marchioness Mary and formulate defensive preparations for war. The adult Emily had already become a qualified commander. The Sapphire Duchy is the primary target, and the Spirit Island is even more so. There was a magic gate on the Heart Island, and it was the only way for the Fire Kingdom to attack the Eagle Kingdom. One could imagine the strategic value of this place. It was a place that all militaries would fight over. At the very least, the Eagle royal family would definitely dream of destroying the Heart Island and the Heart Reed teleportation array, cutting off the gateway for the Fire Kingdom to enter the east from the sea. Mary will soon return from the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom with the latest developments of the Iron and Steel Ridge royal family. If a war breaks out at sea, will the Iron and Steel Ridge royal family and the Eagle royal family dispatch a dragon knight to launch a new dragon-slaying war? As Emily spoke, her eyes flickered with excitement. Ever since she became a dragon knight, she had yet to participate in a real dragon-slaying war. She had only practiced with List a few times, riding a dragon or engaging in hand-to-hand combat. Holding Emily's slender and powerful waist, List said with great pride, "It doesn't matter whether we launch it or not. The outcome of a conventional sea war or a dragon-slaying war has long been determined. The sea has one and only one master. Not only the Azure Wave Sea and the Shell Sea but the entire sea." Emily gently leaned her head on List's shoulder, feeling List's pride. Her original excitement faded a little and instead she felt a lot of sweetness. "Yes, Your Majesty." The punishment order lasted for 4 whole months, from the beginning of August to the end of November. Since the Eagle Kingdom continued to pursue the policy of not resisting, List also unceremoniously scraped the land 3 feet deep and took away all the people and materials on the ground. Even the crops that had not yet ripened were harvested and taken away. There was no one here anyway, so there was no need to leave any resources behind. Post-war statistics. They plundered a total of 800,000 people. Among them, 200,000 were distributed to the feudal nobles, and the remaining 600,000 were obtained by List and his feudal nobles. Not a single greater sprite worm was obtained, as they had all migrated with the greater aristocrats. Only 3 lesser sprites were obtained. The rest were sprite worms owned by some lesser aristocrats. Overall, this year's punishment order harvest, apart from the relatively abundant population, is not as good as last year's development order in all other aspects. The knight class captured and incorporated are mostly lesser aristocrats with poor talent and character. Tulip Island's Duke Lee William concluded at the outer court meeting. It seems that the Eagle Kingdom's method of migrating greater aristocrats has allowed them to reduce their losses by a lot. Wudong Island's Duke Piero sighed. P Island's Marquis de Maria said disappointedly, "Next year's punishment order may not have any place to fight. We need to open up a new battlefield." He was eagerly looking forward to war. Without enough war contributions, how could he realize his title as a duke? Perhaps Snowstorm Mountain Duchy is a breakthrough direction? Snowstorm Mountain Duchy's internal war has just ended. With the support of the Yellowstone Plain Kingdom's Dragon Knight, Spot succeeded to the throne and now has the Cornflower Gem Dragon's approval. It will be very difficult to deal with them. Moreover, their domestic resources are not rich enough. With 2 punishment orders, this duchy will probably disappear. List directly stopped the minister's proposal. Snowstorm Mountain Duchy should focus on peace for the time being. The main direction is to attack the Eagle Kingdom. You don't have to worry, the Flame Kingdom's war will never stop. Maybe someone will take the initiative to provoke a new war. As if to reflect List's foresight, just after the end of the 11th month of the first year of the Flame calendar and the arrival of the 12th month, the Blood Servant reported important news. The Eagle Kingdom and the Steel Ridge Kingdom announced an alliance and issued a war mobilization order to attack the Sapphire Duchy. Traitors must be punished. The Sapphire family betrayed the Steel Ridge Kingdom and betrayed their master, the Platinum family. Only blood and fire can wash away their mistakes. The mobilization order was issued. The Azure Waves sea surged again. Chapter 1104. The war has come. List threw away the paper with the war mobilization order written on it. His gaze shifted from the exterior corridor of the Palace of Stars to the Flame Royal City in the distance, which was bustling with traffic. His scarlet cloak fluttered in the wind, revealing the golden-striped leather armor underneath from time to time. His expression was very relaxed. The alliance of the Steel Ridge Kingdom and the Eagle Kingdom to invade the Sapphire Duchy was within his expectations. All the countermeasures had been prepared in advance, so there was nothing to be surprised or nervous about. Is the Sapphire family ready? Orders of chivalry have been assembled. The intercepting fleet has set off, and the Sapphire Dragon has also set off. They are ready to escort the intercepting fleet and ensure that the Steel Ridge Kingdom's fleet reaches the Blue Dragon Island smoothly. Emily stood beside List. Duke Anthony's relatives and the relatives of the Sapphire Duchy's greater aristocrats have been moved to Reed City. Sapphire Duchy was threatened by the two kingdoms and could turn into a battlefield at any time. In order to prevent the duchy's knight from surrendering easily, List had Anthony move all the relatives of the duchy's aristocrats to the Flame Kingdom. Inform Anthony to give up if things don't work out. The Sapphire Dragon is too weak and he is not a dragon knight. He has no chance of winning the dragon-slaying war. In case he encounters the Steel Ridge Kingdom's dragon knight while intercepting the fleet, retreat directly to the Heart Island for support. I have already instructed him. Emily said with a trace of disdain. In fact, Duke Anthony doesn't need to be reminded. Looking at his nervous appearance, he will definitely disappear from the battlefield as soon as he senses the Dragon Knight. I doubt if he will dare to support the Heart Island battle. It doesn't matter if he comes or not, but his attitude is related to the future status of the Sapphire Duchy. List patted Emily's shoulder. He could understand Emily's disdain for Anthony, but he also knew that Anthony Sapphire was a Sky Knight at the Perfection Realm who had forcefully taken drugs to mature. Whether it was talent or boldness, he was much worse than the previous Sapphire Grand Duke. In addition, the Sapphire Dragon had been seriously injured several times, and its strength was no longer at its peak. It was really difficult for Anthony and the Sapphire Dragon to participate in the dragon-slaying battle. However, as a follower of List, Anthony had to correct his attitude. He could not put in any effort, but he had to keep up appearances. Emily stopped talking about Anthony and asked, will the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom really dispatch Dragon Knights to attack Heart Island? The Blast Furnace Castle is dedicated to the war with the Kingdom of Fallen Leaf. The border between the Iron and Steel Ridge and the Eagle Kingdom is not worried. They can dispatch a large number of Dragon Knight. Perhaps Osborne Platinum wants to rely on the dragon tactics to suppress me at sea. List's speculation was not without evidence. The Blood Servants had already discovered that the Dragon Knight of the two kingdoms had begun to move. There were 8 dragons left in the Eagle Kingdom, 5 of which were Dragon Knights. There were 4 dragons left in the 4 vassal countries, 2 of which were Dragon Knights. The Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom had 11 dragons, 7 of which were Dragon Knight. The 6 vassal kingdoms had 6 dragons, 4 of which were Dragon Knight. If this lineup was really assembled, it would be very powerful. After all, there were 30 dragons and 21 Dragon Knight. If there really is a dragon-slaying war, how many Dragon Knight will they dispatch? I don't know. Let's first set up a defense on the Heart Island and wait for the Blood Servants to continue to inquire. While the two were talking, a majestic unicorn suddenly flew in from the horizon. It galloped in the void and soon arrived at the Palace of the Sun, the Moon, and the Stars. It was a Chi riding the unicorn. Charlie. Brother. A Chi, have all the space magic beacons been placed? List quickly took a Chi's hand and helped her down from the unicorn's back. Seeing the two so intimate, Emily's eyes slightly darkened, but then returned to normal. She was already very satisfied to be loved by List and become his woman. She never dared to hope that she could replace a Chi's position in List's heart. It's all done. Brothers dragons are very cooperative, and the mermaids are also very cooperative, a Chi said with a smile. Her various elemental incarnations were almost complete, and she had long since finished practicing space elemental incarnation and could place space magic beacons. The invisible dragon bard could sense the existence of space magic beacons and thus determine their positions, allowing List to calmly command the dragons to fight. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to complete a meticulous layout by relying on the Dragonheart code communication. There are 2 magic shooters personally arranging the magic arrays, and the mermaids in charge of operating the magic arrays. Coupled with my dragons, Emily and me, the Heart Island is impregnable. List looked up at the sky at a 45-degree angle. Next, we'll deal with soldiers with arms and water with an earth weir. To List's surprise, the dragon-slaying war did not arrive quickly. Instead, the fleet war at sea was in full swing. The Sapphire Duchy's intercepting fleet quickly collided with the Steel Ridge Kingdom's fleet. Anthony, who was escorting the fleet, soon discovered that the Steel Ridge Kingdom had also sent a dragon knight to escort the attacking fleet. He and the Sapphire Dragon fled upon hearing the news. That dragon knight did not take the initiative to attack the Sapphire Duchy's fleet. He just drove away the Sapphire Dragon from afar, and then watched the docking ship battle taking place at sea. Your Majesty, that dragon knight is the white-hearted Iron Dragon Knight Odin Platinum, a member of the Steel Ridge Kingdom's royal family, a prince and a distant uncle of King Osborne. Anthony ran all the way to the Heart Island. Upon seeing List, who had already entered the Soul Castle, he said with a sullen face, "Odin Platinum? List knew this dragon knight. He was about 50 years old and very powerful. His mount, the white-hearted Iron Dragon, was a metal dragon with relatively strong battle prowess. It was only slightly weaker than the white-mouthed Iron Dragon, the gray-mouthed Iron Dragon, and the max-mouthed Iron Dragon, but stronger than the Blackheart Iron Dragon. Therefore, List comforted, "Don't worry, Duke Anthony. If Odin dares to personally attack the intercepting fleet, I will obliterate him." "But Your Majesty," Odin did not attack the fleet. He just rode the dragon and patrolled in the sky. Many knights of my intercepting fleet were afraid of the deterrent power of the dragon knight and did not dare to take the initiative to attack. They were already powerless to resist the Steel Ridge fleet and began to retreat in defeat. List frowned slightly. They only saw this from the sky. These dragon knights' learning ability is not weak. He was the first to invent this strategy of the dragon knight assisting the orders of chivalry's charge. Once or twice he even personally participated in the siege as a dragon knight. Under the knight system, this was against the principles of the dragon knight. Of course, at that time, he relied on the fact that the Kingdom of Fire had not yet been established, and he was unrestrained. Now that he was the king of a kingdom, it was not suitable for him to participate in the knight's charge. Breaking the rules was fun for a while, and breaking them all the time would be fun for a while. But that would require the formidable strength to crush the rules. The Steel Ridge Kingdom is menacing. They are building ships with the entire nation's power. The scale of their fleet is already no smaller than my Sapphire fleet. Coupled with the assistance of the white-hearted Iron Dragon Knight, I'm afraid that the Sapphire Duchy will soon fall into enemy hands. Anthony knelt on one knee and wept. The Sapphire family requests the noble Flame family for protection and support. Duke Anthony, please rise. List helped Anthony up and said in a deep voice, "The Sapphire family is my follower. When a loyal knight is in trouble, the benevolent Lord will not ignore it. In the name of the Master of the Sea, I will order the Steel Ridge fleet to withdraw from the Azure Waves Sea. As for Odin Platinum, he will pay the price for his provocation." Chapter 1105. The Dragon Knight of the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom and the Eagle Kingdom were ready to take action. However, the plot of besieging the Heart Island that List had predicted did not unfold. Only the White-Heart Iron Dragon Knight, Odin Platinum, was escorting the fleet to attack the Sapphire Duchy. Maybe this is a test, or maybe it's just a trick to lure the snake out of its hole or lure the tiger away from the mountain. However, no matter which one it is, it won't stop me from personally meeting Odin. If the other party doesn't have any backup plans, I don't mind killing Odin and forcefully capturing the White Iron Dragon. The only regret was that Achi had been studying the Emerald Dragon's hind legs for a long time, but a new mind fruit tree had yet to be cultivated. In other words, List only had one enigmatic dragon soul fruit left. If he used it on the White Iron Dragon, he wouldn't have the soul fruit anymore. If the Emerald Dragon's hind legs couldn't grow a soul fruit tree, it would mean that he would lose the Fairy Dragon. Of course, from another perspective, the soul fruit tree might not be useful on the Fairy Dragon. It would be better to use it on a Metal Dragon, Elemental Dragon, or Gem Dragon. So be it. This White-Heart Iron Dragon of the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom is only 200 years old. Its battle prowess is very high. It's worth it. List signaled the Bone Dragon Winnie, the Fire Dragon Leo, and the water dragon Walter to attach themselves to him and ride the invisible dragon Bart. List then directly passed through the Black Horse Island's natural node and arrived at the Sapphire Duchy. Instead of rushing to the sea where the battle was taking place, he rode the invisible dragon into the material boundary and flew slowly over Black Horse Island, enjoying the scenery. It had been a long time since he returned to Black Horse Island. The population of this island was not very large, and most of them had migrated to Flame Island. Only a part of the Royal Arcane Academy laboratory does some research on magic plants on Black Horse Island. The Thorn Castle, which had a different architectural style, was still standing by the sea. However, there were no more fishing boats on the beach. The tall lighthouse was always lit, but there were only 2 or 3 boats passing by. He shook his head. List didn't sigh with emotion. In the blink of an eye, Bud, who was connected to him, crossed the sea and arrived at the Coral Island's flower town. The Coral Island had been returned to the Sapphire Principality, and the flower town on the northwestern border was no longer his fief. However, compared to the silence of Black Horse Island, Flower Town was still lively. In the square in the center of the town, the song and dance performances were in full swing. The nobles sat in their private rooms, while the commoners stood on the stone slabs. All of them enthusiastically threw themselves into the song and dance. Here one could not feel that a war was happening at all. Every day they would sing and dance. Thanks to the foundation laid by Liszt in the past, the Flower Town had long since become a famous capital of gourmet cuisine and entertainment, and the former residence of the greatest legend of the sea, Liszt. Many young knights would travel thousands of miles to the Flower Town to pay their respects and experience the environment their idol once lived in, hoping to be able to bask in the glory. The apple orchard in front of the small castle has been eradicated. Only the round stone table and stone benches are left. Initially, I wanted to imitate King Arthur and make a round table. Orders of chivalry. My achievements now far exceed the legendary King Arthur. My burning legion is destined to sweep across the legendary continent. This place was no longer his flower town, and there was nothing worth reminiscing about. Let's go, Bud. A man and a dragon sped along the material boundary. In less than an hour, they had already crossed the entire Sapphire Duchy and arrived at the place where the naval battle was taking place. The Sapphire Duchy's fleet was being chased by the Steel Ridge Kingdom's fleet. From time to time, a Sky Knight would leap high into the air, fly towards the fleeing ships, and then defeat the resisting knight on the ships with their own strength, capturing them. Liszt did not care about the battle on the sea. He had already sensed the position of the Whiteheart Iron Dragon. Riding the invisible dragon, he swooped over. With 3 dragons on him, 1 dragon on his mount, and his phoenix incarnation, he had no need to fear ambushes. When he was 15 kilometers away from the Whiteheart Iron Dragon, the invisible dragon's aura could no longer be concealed. The Whiteheart Iron Dragon suddenly sensed it, and its dragon scales stood erect. In the next moment, Odin Platinum, who was riding on top of the Dragon Fang platform, shouted with the help of the dragon's buff, "So it is King Liszt who has arrived. Odin is wearing armor, so I am unable to greet you. Please forgive me." As he spoke, he had already ridden the White Iron Dragon and fled into the distance like a meteor. He had no intention of fighting or chatting with Liszt. Under normal circumstances, it would be very difficult to pursue a dragon at its peak. Even if one could catch up, there was no guarantee that they would be able to make the other party stay. However, this was not impossible for Liszt. He relied on his unparalleled solo-killing ability. Therefore, he immediately erupted with his full speed and chased after the Whiteheart Iron Dragon. His aura firmly locked onto the Whiteheart Iron Dragon. Chase and flee. The distance quickly shortened. But soon Liszt's heart skipped a beat. He knew what Odin's plan was, luring the tiger away from the mountain. He was trying to keep Liszt on the sea. Emily had already sent a new message with the help of the Dragon Heart Code. 6 dragon knights suddenly appeared above the Heart Island, heading straight for the Heart Island. What's the point of doing this? The natural nodes are scattered around the Aquamarine Sea and the Shell Sea. I can tear through space at any time to reinforce them. Liszt glanced at the Whiteheart Iron Dragon Knight that was still desperately fleeing. He decisively tore through the material boundary and entered the world outside the material boundary. He found the magic gate of the Heart Island and passed through it in a quarter of an hour, arriving at the Heart Island. He saw that the 6 dragon knights were besieging the Heart Island, which was protected by a defensive magic array. The Dragon Knight took turns to use dragon battle energy to attack the magic array, and the dragons were also continuously spitting out dragon breath. Even with 2 magic shooters and 6 mermaids working together to support the magic array was quickly becoming precarious. How dare you? List rode the invisible dragon bard and suddenly turned into a silent shadow thorn, rushing toward the dragon knight closest to the magic array, the ruby dragon knight of the Eagle Kingdom, Rudolph Morning Glory. Be careful, Rudolph. Another dragon knight suddenly shouted a warning. Rudolph fiercely rode the ruby dragon and twisted his body, narrowly dodging List's assassination. He quickly escaped from the periphery of the magic array, shouting with lingering fear, "List is still around me, I can feel the existence of the invisible dragon, quickly help me stop him. Don't be nervous, if he dares to show up again I will lock onto him." Before the voice died away, a few more dragons rushed out of the magic array, one of which had a knight on its dragon-tooth platform. That was the light green ruby dragon knight, Emily Flame, rushing over with the bronze dragon Marta, the royal sapphire dragon Rise, the gray iron dragon Orn and the aluminum dragon Connor. In addition to the fire dragon Leo and water dragon Water that List had released during the assassination, all the dragons of the Fire Kingdom had gathered in the blink of an eye. Other than the bone dragon Winnie that had transformed into the bone dragon armor and was draped over List's body, a total of 8 dragons joined the battle and began to counterattack the 6 dragon knight formation formed by the Iron and Steel Ridge and the Eagle Kingdom. Even though the water dragon Water was still very young, the aluminum dragon Connor and the fire dragon Leo were not yet adults. But the bronze dragon Marta and the royal sapphire dragon Rise were stronger than the average dragon knight. The situation on the battlefield was reversed in an instant, and it was now List's turn to lead his dragons to chase the 6 dragon knights. Retreat. The leader of the dragon knights gave the order to retreat and was the first to turn around, preparing to leave the battlefield of the Heart Island. The remaining 5 quickly gathered together and began to retreat from the battlefield in an orderly manner, without the slightest hesitation. The cloak fluttered silently in the wind, and List's face was filled with endless coldness. He was still hidden in the material boundary, and he sighed as if he was talking to himself. "Since we're here, we have to leave something behind before we leave." According to the usual practice, the life of a dragon knight and a dragon are barely acceptable. In the first dragon-slaying battle, he killed the light green sapphire dragon knight Carol Violet and snatched the light green sapphire dragon. In the second dragon-slaying battle, he killed the purple copper dragon knight Loyal Purple Copper and snatched the gray iron dragon. This was the third dragon-slaying battle. No matter what, he had to kill another dragon knight and snatch another dragon. Marta, Leo, Orn, the 3 of you charge directly and destroy their formation. Rise, you're in charge of kiting them from afar and break their coordination. Water, Connor, the 2 of you move around the periphery and lock down their retreat route. Just hold them off for a while. With the help of the Dragon Heart Code and the space magic beacon that Bard had sensed, List quickly completed the task of commanding his own dragon. Finally, he glanced at the eager Emily and continued to communicate through the Dragon Heart Code. "When the enemy's formation scatters, I'll focus on assassinating one of the dragon knights. You'll be in charge of covering for me." "As you wish," Emily replied straightforwardly. At this moment, a Chi who did not need to continue controlling the magic circle, had already arrived at List's side from the material boundary on Charlie the Unicorn. "Brother, what should a Chi do?" List smiled. "You and I will work together. Whichever dragon knight I lock onto, you'll use your magic to restrict his movement. This time we're going to play it big. We're not going to be low-key anymore." Chapter 1106. Golden Orichalcum Dragon, Gray Iron Dragon and Black and Red Fire Dragon. Under List's command, the 3 enormous dragons quickly charged at the 6 fleeing dragon knight. Especially the Orichalcum Dragon. As an indestructible magical metal producer, its fighting style had always been simple and direct, charging and ramming without any fancy moves. Boom. The dragons collided with each other, spewing dragon breath and waving dragon fighting energy. In just one exchange, the 6 dragon knight of the Iron and Steel Ridge Eagle Kingdom coalition army had no choice but to scatter. Leo and the other 3 dragons were also slightly injured. The leader of the coalition army was the Tin Dragon Knight of the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom, Duraf Wyinzi. He turned his dragon head and said, "Everyone, let's fight and retreat. The 6 of us Dragon Knight are enough to cover the entire ocean." That's right. No matter how strong List is, he can't make up for the fact that he doesn't have the help of a Dragon Knight. The Emerald Dragon Knight, Arcus Golden Edge Tequila, responded. He was also a Dragon Knight of the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom. the remaining 4 Dragon Knight. They were the Iron and Steel Ridge Dragon Knight, Rudolph Morning Glory, and the Eagle Kingdom's Yellow Gem Dragon Knight, Tracy Blood Pelican, Lee Dragon Knight, Warren Golden Bell, and Amethyst Dragon Knight, Figo Iris. They all turned their dragon heads and responded to Duraf's call. Just as they were about to regroup and charge at the Orichalcum Dragon, Fire Dragon, and Grey Iron Dragon, they suddenly saw the dark blue dragon that had never appeared in the intelligence. Its wings flashed with countless hailstones and lightning. It was the magic released by the rich dragon magic. Although it wasn't precise enough, the Royal Sapphire Dragon Rise already understood the basic principles of magic release after List's improvements. By rearranging magic particles to form magic runes, it increased the power of its magic attacks and became more aggressive. This indiscriminate attack caught the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom Coalition army off guard. The formation that had just regrouped had to disperse again. Marta, Leo, Orn continued to attack and completely break their formation. Roar! Roar! 3 domineering dragon roars echoed in response. 3 incomparably powerful dragons disregarded the light injuries caused by the Dragon Dochi when they collided and once again fiercely collided. Such an attack would not be a threat to the Dragon Knight, but it was a good way to interfere with the Dragon Knight's movement and disrupt their joint release of Dragon Dochi. Rise, avoid Marta and the rest. Attack the Amethyst Stone Dragon Knight now. List, who was secretly looking for an opportunity to assassinate, commanded using the Dragonheart Code. Hovering high above the battlefield, he could observe the entire process of the battle and give precise orders. Rise did not train with List for long, but this did not prevent him from strictly executing List's orders. As a highly intelligent creature, he was very clear about the current situation. Roar! His wings flapped and countless basic forms of magic gushed out. Rise opened his mouth again, and the laser dragon breath appeared again, stabbing straight at the Amethyst Dragon like a lightsaber. The Amethyst Stone Dragon Knight hurriedly dodged, and Rise followed his actions, continuing to release laser dragon breath and magic attacks. Soon, Figo and his dragon were out of the close range of the Steel Shion Coalition army. At this time, List suddenly saw a glimpse of an opportunity to assassinate. Walter, Connor, entangle the Amethyst Stone Dragon. Marta, Leo, Orn, don't cherish your strength. Even if you have to withstand a few attacks, you have to hold back the other 5 dragons. Emily, you also attack the Amethyst Stone Dragon Knight. Pay attention to cutting the battlefield, and don't let the Amethyst Stone Dragon shorten the distance between it and the other dragons. As you wish. Emily took a deep breath. Her plump chest heaved up and down, and her eyes seemed to shine with a bright light. She looked at the Amethyst Stone Dragon that was dodging the laser dragon breath, and suddenly steered the light green Amethyst Stone Dragon to dive. Ethan, this is your first battle with me. You and I have waited for a long time. Roar! The light green Amethyst Stone Dragon let out a deafening dragon roar. The battlefield became white-hot in an instant. More than 10 dragons and 8 Dragon Knight performed the pinnacle collision in the sky. It was a pity that this place was far away from the Heart Island, and there were no spectators to watch this pinnacle dragon-slaying battle. There had never been such a glorious dragon-slaying battle. At least in the northeastern corner of the legendary continent, it had never happened before. A dragon-slaying battle between 5 to 6 dragons was already the limit. This was the first time there were more than 10 dragons. Damn it, has List gone mad? The coalition leader, Duraf, steered the tin dragon to dodge while he frowned. What is he trying to do? Does he want both sides to suffer? He even dares to fight with 6 Dragon Knight. This was completely different from the original plan where List would not dare to intercept them. However, there was no time for Duraf to think about why this was the case. The 3 powerful dragons brought them too much pressure. After all, they were not ordinary dragons but top-notch dragons. The fire dragon Leo was still underage, but his body was already huge. As an evil dragon, the fire dragon's combat power was always the best among most dragons. The Orichalcum dragon Marta was a magical metal dragon. The orichalcum it produced was indestructible. One could imagine how strong its body was. The gray-mouthed iron dragon Orn was also a relatively powerful metal dragon. Moreover, there was a dragon that could cast spells crazily. The Royal Sapphire Dragon was known as the magical metal dragon among the sapphire dragons. It could almost be regarded as a dragon magic shooter. Perhaps its ability to fight head-on wasn't outstanding, but its ability to disrupt the battlefield was terrifying. Dragons might not need to defend against those superficial spells, but the Dragon Knight on the Dragon Tooth platform couldn't resist the spells with their bodies. They could only dodge the spells by riding on their dragons. This imperceptibly increased the burden of casting the dragon's battle power, and it had a huge impact on the cooperation between the Dragon Knight. Without the dragon's heart code between different dragons, they could only coordinate through words and actions. However, at this moment the sky was filled with hail, rain, lightning, and rocks. They couldn't hear or see each other. They could only sense each other. Most importantly, List's dragon was also vigorously casting the dragon's breath, messing with the senses between dragons. Gather towards me, let's gather and break out of the encirclement. Duraf yelled at the top of his voice, trying to convey his orders through the loud noise. However, the roars of the dragons as well as the huge tsunamis caused by the water dragon water directly drowned out the sound. Even if it couldn't be completely covered up, these Dragon Knight couldn't respond in time. The Dragon Knight formation of the Steel Shion Coalition army was completely chaotic. Especially when it was directly challenged by Emily and had the support of Rise's magic, the Amethyst Stone Dragon Knight Figo Iris Flower, which Connor and Wouter were holding back from afar, dodged left and right like a headless fly, and was forced to get far away from the Dragon Knight formation. At this moment, List turned his head and said to Achi, be ready to seal your position at any time. You can see where I am. Pay attention to where I attack and where the Amethyst Stone Dragon Knight might dodge. Don't worry, big brother, it's just an ordinary Dragon Knight. Achi will use supreme magic to completely seal it. Achi revealed a confident smile. The true essence of space magic is not only mastered by Bard, Achi and Charlie can also cut space. Snort. The unicorn Charlie snorted, echoing Achi's heroic words. Then let's do it. List's eyes were cold, and he rode the invisible dragon Bard across the material boundary, quietly approaching the Amethyst Stone Dragon Knight that was being suppressed by Emily. The 5-meter-long Thunder Dragon Spear, the tip of the spear flashed with a cold light, like a venomous snake flicking its tongue, looking for the flaws revealed by the Amethyst Stone Dragon Knight. Roar. Feeling a prickling sensation on his back, the Amethyst Stone Dragon Knight Figo's heart suddenly contracted, and his soul seemed to be frozen in an instant. Not good, List wants to kill me. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 1107. Rumble. Cracks spread in the void, surrounding the Amethyst Stone Dragon Knight. Wearing a jewel crown, wearing a magic cloak, holding the 8 Dragons' divine sword, and riding Charlie the Unicorn, Aroid's Truth, constantly extracted magic from the magic network, condensed it into powerful space magic, and threw it at the Amethyst Stone Dragon Knight one after another. Space magic of the supreme magic level was enough to fight the Dragon Knight alone, not to mention it was only used to seal the position. Almost immediately the Amethyst Stone Dragon was trapped in the space crack, unable to advance or retreat. Figo Iris Flower's premonition was very accurate. Just as he was facing a crisis, goosebumps covered his body. A cold light suddenly pierced out from the void, followed by a flowing, transparent crystal-like figure, outlining a streamlined dragon with a wingspan of 15 or 16 meters. On the dragon's back, List, wearing silver-white armor and a bright red cloak, seemed to be burning with flames. The flame of the dragon's combat energy and the space of the dragon's magic were mixed in the dragon's spear of Thunder's wrath, and space could no longer stop this powerful force. Figo only saw the tip of the spear piercing out of the void, and the next moment, the tip of the spear had already arrived in front of his forehead. There was no time to react, and the Amethyst Stone Dragon, who was connected to his mind, also could not react. Boom. The tip of the dragon spear of Thunder's wrath accurately pierced Figo's head, and the big head was torn apart by the violent magic in 1,000th of a second, exploding into a pile of powder. The Amethyst Stone Dragon Knight, who had been rampant in the Eagle Kingdom for more than a decade, Duke Figo Iris Flower, became the 3rd Dragon Knight to die at sea, in the hands of List, after Carl Low Violet and Lure Copper. They didn't even fight, just a sneak attack. Roar. With the death of the Dragon Knight, the Amethyst Stone Dragon went completely berserk. The dragon's supreme magic crazily overflowed, and slammed into the space crack, breaking its skin and flesh. But it did not feel the slightest pain, and the overflowing magic was like a substance, solidifying it into a huge purple gem. With an indomitable momentum, the huge purple gem ferociously slammed into List and the invisible dragon he was riding. Wanted revenge. So emotional, huh? Unfortunately, not only will anger make people lose their rationality, it will also make dragons lose their rationality. Facing the Amethyst Dragon's suicidal attack, List did not feel pressured. He calmly rode the invisible dragon to the periphery. At the same time he called out to Emily, "Keep the amethyst stone dragon occupied. I want to subdue it." "As you wish, your majesty." Emily Fireflame rode the light green gem dragon straight towards the amethyst dragon. "Achi, try and see if you can injure it and seal it in ice." "We still have to fight. We can't waste too much time on the stone dragon." "Yes, Achi is trying her best." Achi raised the 8 dragon's divine sword and followed behind the amethyst dragon, constantly casting space magic. This was the most powerful type of magic she had mastered. No matter how angry and violent the purple gemstone dragon was, its strength was limited. Soon it was entangled by Achi and Emily. There was also the aluminum dragon Connor and the water dragon Walter. It could neither fight back nor escape. The situation was in a stalemate. List no longer paid attention to it. He and Bard suddenly flapped their wings and rushed to another battlefield. The 5 Dragon Knight of the Steel Xiong Coalition army had begun to adapt to the predicament in front of them. They moved closer to each other and gradually found their familiar formation. At this moment, they had already seen the angry amethyst dragon and guessed that only when Figo was killed would the amethyst stone dragon lose its rationality and fall into an indescribable rage. "You actually killed Figo." Tin Dragon Knight, Duraf Wuyinzi, said with a trembling voice, his eyes wide open. "I only used one move to kill him, Duke Duraf." List and Bard wandered around the battlefield, sometimes escaping into the material boundary and sometimes appearing in the real world. They interfered with the Dragon Knight's formation and allowed their own dragons to catch a breather. They had suffered a lot of injuries when they crashed into the formation earlier. Duraf couldn't lock onto List, so he could only shout, "You actually killed Figo. You're openly making an enemy out of the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom. Don't you know that this will bring you and your Fire Kingdom destructive consequences? Figo is the Dragon Knight of the Eagle Kingdom. I killed him. Will King Osborne fall out with me because of this?" List stalled for time while looking for an opportunity to cut in. "The Heart Island is the territory of my Fire Kingdom. I should be the one asking you. Does the Steel Ridge Kingdom want to start a war with my Fire Kingdom?" "King List, are you really not afraid?" Duraf asked, suppressing his anger. List sneered, "What do you think?" Duraf glanced at the other 4 Dragon Knight around him who were struggling to hold on. He took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, "Don't forget, the Steel Ridge Kingdom and Eagle Kingdom together have a total of 30 dragons. If it's an all-out war, even if you are a Holy Dragon Knight, you will still be crushed." Crushed. After a question, List had already rushed over on the invisible dragon like a bolt of lightning and stabbed out with the Fury of Thunder dragon spear. At this moment, his dragon's fighting technique was no longer limited to fixed moves. Having touched the barrier, his vision had reached the peak of the Dragon Knight and was about to jump out of the shackles of the barrier. His every move was in line with the peak power. "Is this how you crush me?" Kaboom! The Fury of Thunder pierced straight at Duraf. Duraf hurriedly raised his dragon spear to block. The tin dragon he was sitting on also turned around and tried to hit the invisible dragon. However, the invisible dragon only moved slightly to the side and dodged the tin dragon's counterattack. Then List suddenly withdrew his dragon spear and thrust it back with the Fury of Thunder dragon. Puchi! The Fury of Thunder dragon pierced the tender flesh under the tin dragon's wing. Blood spurted and a big hole was opened. Ho! The tin dragon was in pain, but when Duraf wanted to pursue again, List had already pulled out his dragon spear and escaped into the material boundary. The next moment his figure appeared in another direction. "Duke Duraf, if I pay the price of a little injury, you will stay in this sea and sleep like Duke Figo today, do you understand?" List looked at Duraf with a stern gaze. The invisible dragon was like a sculpture, quietly floating in the sky. Not far away. Among the Dragon Knight who were closely watching this place, the lead Dragon Knight Warren Inverted Golden Bell suddenly roared, "Duke Duraf, Duke Figo is dead, we must avenge him." The Yellow Gem Dragon Knight Tracy Crying Blood Pelican also roared, "Duke Figo must not die in vain." Both of them, like Figo, were Dragon Knight of the Eagle Kingdom. Although they often schemed and plotted against each other, at this moment, the fox mourned the death of the rabbit, and they inevitably looked sorrowful and indignant. The Ruby Dragon Knight Rudolph Morning Glory and the Emerald Gem Dragon Knight Arcus Golden Edge Tequila did not speak. They just quickly approached Duraf to help him resist List's possible next assassination. He glanced at Warren and Tracy, and then at the still-standing Brass Dragon, Fire Dragon, and Gray-Mouthed Iron Dragon, as well as the Royal Sapphire Dragon that was constantly releasing magic. Duraf hesitated, unable to make a decision. According to the established plan, the attack on the Sapphire Duchy was just a minor detail, and the attack on the Heart Island was just a feint. They only needed to tie down List and the Fire Kingdom's dragon. But now there was a problem. They should have quickly retreated, but Figo had died under List's dragon spear. This messed up all the plans. Should he turn around and take revenge or continue to flee? Duraf narrowed his eyes. Just as he was about to make a decision, an extremely sorrowful and indignant dragon roar suddenly resounded through the sky. The next moment, the attention of everyone and the dragon was attracted by the sound. They turned their heads and looked into the distance. It was a bright purple silhouette in the shape of a dragon that was constantly spreading. When it had spread to half the sky, the purple dragon silhouette suddenly shattered. It was as if a piece of glass had shattered in the hearts of everyone and the dragon, and they instantly felt the sorrow of the heavens and the earth wailing. List was no exception. He stared in amazement at the place where the silhouette had shattered. The amethyst dragon, which he had regarded as his prey, was spinning and slowly falling down. The originally rich dragon Ultra Magic was already in a state of slight dissipation. The amethyst stone dragon is actually dead? 11_11622/ Chapter 1108. The amethyst stone dragon was dead in front of everyone's eyes. That huge purple light was the expansion of its dragon soul, the illusion and even the shattering and disappearing. A dragon that represented the pinnacle of power became eternal death just like that. The waves of the sea were still rolling, and the magic in the sky was still overflowing, but everyone stopped. They watched as the 40-meter-long dragon corpse slowly fell to the sea surface. Whoosh! The wind howled, as if it represented the mourning of this part of the world for the death of the amethyst stone dragon. Every dragon was the most outstanding creation of nature, a combination of beauty, strength, wisdom, loyalty, or pride, always displaying an unparalleled charm. Duraf, Arkith, Rudolph, Tracy, Warren, as well as List, Achi, Emily and many other dragons stopped fighting and watched the falling figure of the amethyst stone dragon. Half an hour ago, the death of the amethyst stone dragon knight Figo Iris Flower did not receive such a solemn attention. Dragon knight warriors were not rare, and the death of a dragon in battle was the most incredible. Dragons represented the pinnacle of power and abundant resources, more precious than a small country. Your Majesty, it chose to die by collapsing its soul. We did not expect it to be so resolute. Emily explained the death of the amethyst stone dragon to List through the Dragon Heart Code. I understand. List nodded gently, freed from the shocking atmosphere of the dragon's death. His heart was full of regret. The dragon that should have replenished the Fire Kingdom had died just like that, but things had already happened and what had to be done had to be done. Emily, you and Ethan salvaged the amethyst stone dragon's corpse and transport it back to Sun Moon Valley. The blood that flowed out of a dragon's battle could evolve into gems and metal veins, not to mention a whole dragon's corpse. Except for the dragon bones, which could not be preserved for a long time, the rest of the body would basically turn into magic and then form a huge vein. This amethyst stone dragon could still produce a large number of amethysts and countless derivatives. Amethysts, after its death. Yes, Your Majesty. Emily quickly rode the light green amethyst stone dragon and rushed to the falling amethyst stone dragon's corpse. When Emily took action, the other dragon knight also woke up from the shock. Tracy immediately roared, "Stop! The amethyst stone dragon's corpse belongs to the Eagle Kingdom." But his warning was meaningless. Emily did not hesitate at all. The leader of the allied forces, Durlov, looked at List, who had revealed himself with a gloomy expression. King List, the battle is over. We admit that you have won this battle of dragon slaying. I will also issue an official letter of apology and compensate the Fire Kingdom for their losses on the Heart Island. After a pause, he raised his dragon spear and pointed it in the direction where the amethyst dragon fell into the sea. But I need to take the amethyst stone dragon knight's corpse away. List looked at Duraf and the others coldly. You can start a war, but whether it ends or not is up to me. King List, the war is really over. Durlov continued with a gloomy expression. Maybe you have the upper hand in this war, but I need to inform you that the battle on the Sapphire Duchy and Heart Island is just a distraction. The real battle is taking place in Emperor Realgar City. The Fire Kingdom's entrance to the legendary continent is probably being baptized by the Eagle Kingdom's dragons. You need to rush over immediately to provide support. Yang Ling raised his eyebrows. List finally understood the complete strategy of this war. The battle on the sea with the Sapphire Duchy was a test. The siege on the Heart Island was a distraction. List and his dragons were all concentrated there. At the same time, the other dragons of the Eagle Kingdom launched an attack on the Fire Kingdom's Emperor Realgar City to cut off the tentacles that extended towards the legendary continent. From the very beginning, the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom and the Eagle Kingdom had planned to attack Emperor Realgar City in order to contain the Fire Kingdom above the sea. Perhaps to these mainland kingdoms, no matter how strong List, who was trapped on the sea, was, he would not be able to threaten their rule. Let's all take a step back. King List, I express my apologies on behalf of the Eagle Kingdom. Warren was riding a lead dragon. His gaze was much calmer than Tracy's. We will take away the Amethyst Stone Dragon Knight. The death of Duke Figo and the destruction of Emperor Realgar City will cancel each other out. From now on, the two kingdoms can still coexist peacefully. Emperor Realgar City and the Magic Gate would probably be completely destroyed. With such a long dragon-slaying war, there would be enough time to attack. Without the Dragon Knight guarding, it would be impossible to stop the dragons of the Eagle Kingdom. A city and a door in exchange for the life of a dragon. Strictly speaking, List was making a huge profit. Agreeing to Warren's proposal could be said to be taking advantage of him. However, this was only on the surface. List was very clear that peace would exist through fighting, and peace would perish through compromise. It was better to pursue a cornered enemy bravely than to seek fame as a tyrant. The death of the Amethyst Stone Dragon was already an irreconcilable feud. The Eagle Kingdom had long hated him to the core, and there was no possibility of peace. He quickly opened his mouth and said, "Yes, I can return the body of Duke Figo Iris Flower to you, and then let you leave here. I'm talking about the Amethyst Stone Dragon Knight. The dragon and the man will be returned to us together. Only the knight and only Duke Figo. Do you understand? It seems that King List does not intend to accept my proposal." Warren stepped over Raph and spoke directly to List in the name of the Eagle Kingdom. In the middle of the confrontation, the little water dragon Walter had already caught Figo's body. Under the command of List, Figo's body was thrown to Warren in a parabola. "Take the body and get out of here. Otherwise there will be people who will sleep in this sea forever. Just like Carl Low Violet, Lloyd Copper and Figo Iris Flower." As if responding to List's will at the moment, the many dragons behind him roared in unison. Roar, 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 snort. Achi, who was riding on Charlie the Unicorn and standing on the head of Leo the Fire Dragon, also snorted. Then the unicorn she was riding on let out a snort unwillingly. 8-9 dragons, 2 dragon knights, a magic shooter, and the magic shooter who was still in charge of the magic circle on the Heart Island did not come along. Such a luxurious lineup brought great pressure to the 5 dragon knights of the Steel Xiong Alliance, especially List and Bard, who appeared and disappeared from time to time. They were like poisonous snakes hiding in the dark, ready to strike at any time. They did not know how Figo died, but they could guess that it must have been a sneak attack by List. Other dragon knights could fight for days and nights to determine the winner, but List only needed a few rounds, or even a sneak attack. Catching Figo's body, the lead dragon knight Warren took a deep breath and looked at the tin dragon knight Duraf. He closed his eyes for a few seconds and then suddenly opened them. "Well, the war is in your hands, King List. I hope your majesty can take care of yourself." Chapter 1109. Whoosh. The lead dragon turned around and flew into the distance. The tin dragon, yellow stone dragon, ruby stone dragon, and emerald stone dragon all followed the lead dragon. The waves on the sea subsided just like that. List did not make a move to keep them. With the example of the amethyst stone dragon knight's corpse lying in the sea, a rash attack would inevitably lead to the other party's crazy counterattack. The copper dragon Ma, the fire dragon Leo, and the gray iron dragon Orn had all been injured in order to cut up the battlefield. The royal sapphire dragon Rise's magical power consumption was also huge, which meant that all the support positions were half disabled. It was not wise to force the Steel Hero Alliance to remain in a complete state of combat. Of course, he let them go not because he was worried about Realgar City. It was just a city and a magic gate. The Fire Kingdom had 2 archmages and many arcanists overseeing it, and they could rearrange the magic transmission array at any time. The city could be rebuilt again and the magic gate could be opened again. What was there to be afraid of when the population was gone? It was not that he was afraid of the other party's strength. Even if he could not keep a dragon knight, he could at least make the other party pay the price of a few dragons being seriously injured. The real reason he let her leave was because he could sense a thick thread of fate flickering in the surroundings. The thread of fate was connected to him and the invisible dragon he was sitting on, and the other end was connected to the distant spacetime. It vaguely looked like a bronze dragon. Bronze dragon. As the caretaker of fate, Liszt could rely on the power of fate to act, but he considered more on his own choices. For example, he had received a warning from the power of fate, and found that Realgar City, Island of Souls, and Sapphire Duchy were all flickering with fuzzy smoke. Among them, Realgar City's smoke was the thickest, which indicated that the real location of the crisis was Realgar City. In the end, he did not choose to support Realgar City, but to guard Island of Souls, whose strategic value far exceeded that of Realgar City. It was also proven that breaking the guidance of fate also gave him great benefits, killing a dragon knight and an amethyst dragon. Only by combining fate with myself can I truly exert the power of fate. Only by doing this and not becoming a puppet of fate can I break the barrier of the power of fate together with the smoke dragon at some point in the future and surpass fate. Touching the elemental barrier together with the fire dragon Leo allowed Liszt's vision to jump out of the dragon knight's level. He stood at a higher and farther place and gazed at the present, calmly choosing whether to jump out of the framework of the power of destiny or to follow the flow of destiny. Since it's a bronze dragon, then it should be the Eagle Kingdom's bronze dragon knight, Alonso Celeste. Fate has allowed us to meet again. This is fate. Of course, I shouldn't reject this kindness. Alonso, I let you escape back then, but this time it won't happen again. Feeling the guidance of the threads of fate, Liszt quietly waited for the Gangxiong alliance to leave. When the five-dragon knight completely left the range of the dragon's senses, he turned to Achi and said, "You and Laird stay on the Heart Island for a while longer and ensure that the other party doesn't come back. I need to immediately go to Realgar City to check on the casualties, although I've already arranged for people to take refuge in advance." "Brother, don't worry, Achi will definitely protect the Heart Island." Achi responded and then remembered something. "Oh, by the way, brother, don't forget to ask Emily to gather the Arcanist to temporarily seal and preserve the Amethyst Stone Dragon's corpse to prevent it from losing too much dragon magic. Achi still needs to use it to nurture the Soul Fruit Tree. Once a dragon died, it would quickly lose its magic and create new mineral deposits. That was why Liszt asked Emily to quickly salvage the dragon's corpse. He didn't want any losses, every little bit was money, and the Fire Kingdom didn't have large businesses that could be wasted so easily. I've already informed Emily, and Chris has already led the Arcanists from the Royal Arcane Academy to set up the Sealing Magic Circle in advance. The sealing mentioned here was just a method to preserve materials. Basically, every mage knew how to do it. After explaining everything, Liszt signaled the fire dragon Leo and the water dragon Wouter to transform into their totems and possess them. Together with the bone dragon Winnie, they each carried 3 dragons. Riding the invisible dragon Bard, they quickly tore through the material boundary and entered the world outside of the material world. From the layers of crystal images, they searched for the natural node of Realgar City. Flying in the world outside of the material world, the wormhole channels of the Great Maelstrom Magic Transmission Circle, Heart Reed Magic Transmission Circle, and Yellow Fire Magic Transmission Circle were especially bright. Only the wormhole channel of the Majestic Jade Magic Transmission Circle was missing. Sure enough, the magic gate of Realgar City has been destroyed and rebuilding it will cost a lot of money. Since the Eagle Kingdom dared to destroy my transmission circle, I'll exchange it with the Bronze Dragon. Using the Amethyst Stone Dragon as compensation for mental damage and the Bronze Dragon as compensation for material damage, Liszt felt that this was very reasonable. Finding the location of the natural node that had been restored, the invisible dragon passed through. The next moment, the image in Liszt's field of vision had already turned into gray ruins, with traces of burning smoke lingering around. There was no Realgar City in front of him, only large areas of charred ruins. Through the ruins he could vaguely see the potholes left by the dragon fighting technique's attack. Not far away, a group of knight was searching in the ruins. After Liszt showed himself, the knight immediately crowded around him. The leading knight dismounted from his horse and knelt on one knee to salute solemnly. "Greetings, Your Majesty, Lord Knight Gaetan. On behalf of our Lord, Viscount Anduin Grey Magpie, I offer my sincere greetings to you." "So you're the followers of Viscount Anduin? Then Gaetan, when did you come here? What happened here before?" Gaetan replied, "Your Majesty, our Lord received an order from the outer pavilion half an hour ago. We were ordered to investigate Realgar City. When we arrived at the scene, Realgar City had already been destroyed. We only saw the figures of 3 dragons flying towards the north. List's gaze was meaningful. In other words, those dragons flew away less than half an hour ago? He searched carefully in his mind and soon outlined all the natural nodes around Realgar Plains one by one. He then combined them with the map to mark their locations. In the beginning, in order to choose a suitable place to build a magical teleportation portal, he had searched for several natural nodes outside of the Realgar city's natural node. However, the locations were not suitable, so he gave up. For example, about 800 kilometers northeast, there was a natural node on the sea. With the flying speed of the dragons, they can fly about 200 to 300 kilometers in half an hour. The flight route of the dragons of the Eagle Kingdom should be straight north. If I immediately cross to the location of the natural node of the sea, and then fly west, I can intercept those dragons on their flight route. While he was thinking, the threads of fate in the unseen world flickered even more. One end of the threads of fate clearly outlined the lines of the bronze dragon and Alonso Cyclamen on its back. That figure seemed to be reserved and proud, allying with the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom and blocking the Fire Kingdom on the sea. Such a strategic move might be the work of the Bronze Dragon Knight, Alonso Cyclamen. It was quite similar to Zhuge Liang's strategy of allying with Wu to resist Cao Cao during the Three Kingdoms period. Unfortunately, you're not worthy of Shu Han and Dong Yu Wu. I'm not Cao Wei either. These 3 kingdoms are destined to be unified by my Western Jin dynasty. Bah, how can that old thief Sima be compared to me? Chapter 11:10. There was a salty sea breeze blowing on the surface of the sea. Suddenly, a crack appeared in mid-air, and then everything was quiet again. However, the invisible Dragon Knight List had already walked out of the natural node and quickly flew west, constantly sensing whether there were any dragon auras drifting around. The Eagle Kingdom is really generous. The Silver Dragon, the White Iron Dragon, the Brass Dragon, the Copper Dragon, and the Bronze Dragon Knight Alonso Cactus have come. A total of 5 dragons have come just to destroy my magic door. Perhaps they think that the cost of building a magic door is too high? The cost of a magic door or a magic transmission array was indeed high. The materials needed for a magic transmission array could account for 1/20th of the Fire Kingdom's annual income. However, the publicity was that List had spent all the family's money to build a magic transmission array. Perhaps because of this, when List built a magic transmission array, the Iron Mountain Alliance army dispatched a dragon to attack List's wallet. This deal made the kings of the 2 kingdoms feel that it was a good deal. The dragon and the Dragon Knight were bored staying at home, so it was better to take them out for some exercise. After the alliance between the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom and the Eagle Kingdom, the Dragon Knight confronting each other at the border of the 2 kingdoms no longer needed to stay and could move freely. However, they did not expect that the battle situation would be so tragic. The purple gemstone Dragon Knight Figo Iris Flower died on the spot. And now, the team attacking the wallet still did not know that List had intercepted them on their way back. Although it was not clear which area the 5 dragons were in, this did not prevent List from riding the invisible dragon back and forth, sensing any remaining dragon auras. The most important thing was that List could feel the threads of fate, guiding him forward. The scenery was the most beautiful in the evening. The wilderness, under the illumination of the setting sun, showed a beautiful and charming style. At this moment, the figure of a dragon suddenly appeared above a cloud in the sky. Around this dragon, there were 4 other dragons flying side by side, maintaining a distance of 10 kilometers. As the 5 dragons flew past, the silhouette of another dragon flashed past. It was List, who had been silently trailing behind the 5 dragons. As expected, it's easy to find these dragons if I follow the guidance of fate. I'll follow them for now and attack when they're separated. The endurance of dragons was very strong. When they were flying slowly, they almost didn't need to rest. He only needed to eat once in a while. After all, his huge body consumed a lot of energy and he would be starving if he didn't eat. After tracking for about 3 hours, the 5-headed dragon landed on a remote territory. The local leader killed a goat and a cow to reward Alonso and the 5-headed dragon. List did not expose himself. He only took out a tender steak and a magic potion from his space ring to reward the invisible dragon Bard, who had been flying for a long time. At the same time, he drank a batch of Fire Dragon Water and Water Dragon Water to replenish the energy consumed by Fire Dragon Leo, Water Dragon Walter, and Bone Dragon Winnie. There's not much magic potion left. I've only stockpiled it for a few days and it'll all be used up in one big operation. Looking at the empty space ring, List sighed silently. Alonso and his party repaired in this remote territory for an entire night, and they only set off again when the sun rose the next day. After that, they flew for an entire night, and the 5 dragons maintained a reasonable distance from each other, not giving Liszt any chance to take advantage of them. And looking at the situation, Alonso seemed to be more nervous. Did he discover me? Impossible. Bard's combat power has not matured yet, but his spatial concealment ability is definitely the best in the world. He immediately denied this possibility. Since it was impossible to be discovered, and the other party was on high alert, Liszt guessed that Alonso should already know the situation on the Heart Island. If they want to involve me and my dragons in a 3-way battle, it means that they must have a way to communicate with each other. Otherwise, it'll be easy for me to take advantage of the time difference. Realgar City was tens of thousands of kilometers away from the Heart Island. Without a way to communicate with each other, it was very difficult to ensure coordination. Could it be that the magic platform has been pirated? He thought of another possibility, but the core magic rune structure of the magic platform had always been strictly controlled by the Royal Arcane Academy. The magic consultants of the other countries had no ability to master this technology. He could not figure it out. However, the threads of fate were still pulling him and Alonso, which was why he was still following behind the 5-headed dragon. Just like that, he followed from the border of the Eagle Kingdom all the way to the heart of the Eagle Kingdom. Just as Liszt was about to give up on this hunting plan, the 5 dragons finally separated. The white iron dragon, silver dragon, brass dragon, and copper dragon continued to fly side by side, flying in the direction of the Eagle Kingdom's capital. Alonso Cyankali, however, rode the bronze dragon and flew in another direction. This direction, according to the sextant's calculation, he's returning to his fief. Liszt's eyes lit up, feeling the threads of fate trembling violently. They continued to follow for half an hour. When Alonso reached a mountain range, his posture completely relaxed. Suddenly, he and the invisible dragon Bard felt a jolt in their hearts. In the next moment, the invisible dragon shuttled through the material boundary, accelerating to the highest speed in the blink of an eye, heading straight for the bronze dragon. When the distance between the 2 dragons was close to 15 kilometers, the bronze dragon's body suddenly shook, and then it vigorously flapped its wings, trying to speed up. Alonso had already sensed the invisible dragon's aura and was trying to escape. Unfortunately, all this was destined to be in vain. Back then, Liszt was riding the young fire dragon Leo and supporting a Chi who had just become a magic shooter. Even then, he was able to seriously injure Alonso, let alone now. When the invisible dragon flew out of the material boundary, it was no longer a dragon. Flames and mist flew together, and the fire dragon Leo and the water dragon Water suddenly appeared, rushing together towards the bronze dragon knight, Alonso Cyankali. 3 against 1. Apart from Water, who was just there to make up the numbers, Bard and Leo were both powerful dragons. Liszt. Long time no see, Alonso. Boom, 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 the battle quickly broke out. After a while, the bronze dragon was already heavily injured and on the verge of collapse. When Bard once again escaped from the material boundary, the Thunder Fury dragon's spear accurately pierced Alonso's heart, and the torrential dragon's fighting energy instantly crushed his internal organs. The dragon knight of a generation had fallen. The bronze dragon roared endlessly for the death of its knight, but it could not change the direction of the story. Leo collided with it and made it dizzy. Then Liszt stabbed it a few times and it completely fainted. Leo, you hold it, let's go back. When the thread of fate that belonged to Alonso broke, Liszt rode the dragons away, satisfied. The dragon knight that he had wanted to kill for a long time was finally dead. As a result, the number of dragon knight that had died in the hands of Liszt had reached as many as 4, all from the Eagle Kingdom. 3 of them were the dragon knight of the kingdom, and 1 was the dragon knight of the vassal kingdom. Taking a deep breath, Liszt looked at the distant mountains, his mood surprisingly calm. I don't know how the Eagle Kingdom will respond next. The era of peace is over. Next, I'm afraid it will be the time for an all-out war between me, the Iron and Steel Ridge, the Eagle Kingdom, and even the Blast Furnace Castle. Recommending a friend's new book, The Whole World is Full of Ghosts Except for Me. The author is a fool, but the book is very good. 11_11622/ Chapter 11:12. Alonso's corpse was casually thrown into the wilderness. Liszt had already dragged the heavily injured bronze dragon away from the scene and flew straight to the brass mine magic gate in the land of fertility. Although the majestic jade teleportation formation was destroyed, the yellow flame teleportation formation still stood tall in the southwest border of the Eagle Kingdom. After returning to Flame Island, List directly used the last enchanting dragon soul fruit and launched a spiritual battle in the Bronze Dragon's spiritual world. The brand of the first-generation Bronze Dragon Knight was simply no match for List, who had the power of destiny. It was erased again and finally disappeared. In its place was List, who became the master of the Bronze Dragon's spiritual world. Nosdorm is a great name. You definitely can't bear it, but it doesn't matter. You'll be called Nosdorm. List jumped down from the Bronze Dragon's body and gave it a new name with a smile. The name of the Time King Bronze Dragon Nosdorm was well known when he played World of Warcraft. However, he was more familiar with the Bronze Dragon Chromie, so he gave the name Nosdorm to the Bronze Dragon of this world. Of course, this was just his bad taste. The name was nothing more than a code. The Outer Pavilion pays close attention to the aftermath of this war. Also pay close attention to the naval battle of the Sapphire Duchy. If the Steel and Majestic Duchy have the intention to start another dragon-slaying war, quickly report to me. Soon after, List presided over a meeting of the Outer Pavilion of the Fire Kingdom. The restoration of the Majestic Jade Teleportation Formation also needs to be done quickly. Your Majesty, is there any possibility of the Majestic Jade Teleportation Formation being restored? The Arcanists of the Academy stationed in Majestic Yellow City have observed the remnants of the Magic Gate and found that the dragon magic at the scene is very chaotic. I'm afraid there will be strong interference. The Dean of the Royal Arcane Academy, Chris, said. It doesn't matter. I've asked Chi. It's fine to sort out the magic. You have to hurry up and prepare the required magic materials. As you wish, Your Majesty. The Prime Minister of the Outer Pavilion, Lee William, said, the Snow Wind Duchy's second prince, C. Carter Cornflower, is now isolated in the Majestic Yellow Plain. Many other fiefdoms and nobles are also isolated. I'm afraid this year's festival cannot be held smoothly. It was already the end of December, and the first year of the Flame calendar was about to end. Once the Outer Pavilion has confirmed the list of rewards, I will hold a ceremony for both sides to confer the title of Knight. As for C. Carter, grant him the title of Marquis of Snowwind Mountain. His territory will be randomly divided near the field of Realgar and let him cultivate it himself. The Kingdom of Fire will protect him. Xiong Yu's teleportation formation is interrupted. This year's trade with the Snow Wind Duchy, as well as the trade between the Snow Wind Duchy and the Yellowstone Plains Kingdom, will be severely affected. With a few more wars, our finances might not be able to make ends meet, said Paris, the First Minister of Finance. How could I not be able to make ends meet? Didn't I just kill a purple gemstone dragon? That amount of wealth is enough to support the Fire Kingdom's needs for a few years. Your Majesty, I'm mainly worried that the Steel and Xiong Kingdoms will cut off their trade with us. Up until now, the output of the Fire Kingdom's farmland wasn't enough for them to be self-sufficient. They had to rely on large amounts of trade to exchange for food, magic potions and other resources. Let's persevere for now. Once the Xiong Yu teleportation formation is restored, we'll increase our trade with the Yellowstone Kingdom. As for the Steel and Xiong Kingdoms, smuggling is fine. As long as there are profits, I believe that the nobles of the two kingdoms will definitely not give up. The coastline is so long that even the Dragon Knight can't patrol it. In this way, the Outer Pavilion held a meeting for a whole day to discuss the aftermath of the war. List had finished explaining everything that needed to be explained and returned directly to Sun Moon Valley. Chi was using the purple gemstone dragon's corpse to cultivate the mind fruit tree. Brother, the emerald dragon's power is very overbearing. Chi can't cultivate the mind fruit tree normally, but the emerald dragon's hind legs can directly extract the magic of the purple gemstone dragon to cultivate the mind fruit tree. Chi pointed to the small sapling that grew directly from the purple gemstone dragon's body. The sapling wasn't big, but it was growing at a speed visible to the naked eye. There were 4 flower buds on the branches. Chi, do you think the purple gemstone dragon can satisfy the nutrition of 4 mind fruit trees? List asked. Back then, the light green purple gemstone dragon also triggered the growth of the mind fruit tree, and it also condensed 4 flower buds. In the end, in order to preserve the life of the light green purple gemstone dragon, only 2 fruits were produced. Now that the purple gemstone dragon itself was dead, the mind fruit tree could be cultivated at all costs. Chi's judgment is that it is enough to cultivate 4 mind fruit trees, but to be on the safe side, only 3 can be cultivated. If I use the magic of Brother's other dragons, I may be able to efficiently maintain 4. Chi analyzed. List narrowed his eyes. He tried to feel the threads of fate on this mind fruit tree. Vaguely he seemed to feel it. There were 4 equally matched threads of fate that were tied together with him. Although he couldn't feel it clearly, he could basically judge it and get the best results. Then let's cultivate 4 together. If there is anything that needs my dragons to do, I will arrange for them to do it seriously. Well, I need brothers dragons to inject the dragon supreme magic into the purple gem stone dragon's body. A chi will arrange a magic array to convert the dragon supreme magic into the purple gem stone dragon's magic and supply it to the mind fruit tree. Dragon ultra magic. That's another huge expenditure. Dragons have always been very stingy with their supreme magic. If you want to get supreme magic, you must give them enough benefits. And List was so poor that he couldn't afford medicine. 9 dragons? No, there were already 10 dragons waiting for him to feed. It would take about a month to cultivate the mind fruit tree. With the promise of a large supply of potions in the future, List finally tricked his own dragons into taking turns to inject the dragon supreme magic into the purple gem stone dragon's body to maintain enough magic to cultivate the mind fruit tree. At the same time, at the end of the first year of the flame calendar, that is, on the 30th of December, when the New Year's Day was about to arrive, the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom and the Eagle Kingdom officially severed diplomatic relations with the Fire Kingdom and cut off all trade. Other than that, there are no other actions? List stood in the corridor of the Palace of Stars, looking at the Fire Kingdom that had entered the New Year's Day atmosphere, and asked Merry Dawn Daybreak behind him. According to the information that the blood servants have gathered, the princes of the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom have already left for the Blast Furnace Kingdom. They should be seeking an alliance between the 3 kingdoms, and then they will go all out to deal with the Fire Kingdom. Are they not planning to contact the Yellowstone Plain Kingdom, and the Fallen Leaf Kingdom that is further away? The Yellowstone Plain Kingdom and the Eagle Kingdom have never had any contact, and the Fallen Leaf Kingdom and the Blast Furnace Kingdom are enemies, so there is no basis for an alliance. But there is one thing that is worth noting. The alliance between the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom has the shadow of the Noble Frost Kingdom behind it. Our blood servants have already successfully infiltrated the Noble Frost Kingdom. Mary continued, according to the investigation of the blood servants, a Dragon Knight Prince of the Noble Frost Kingdom has already left the Empire, and may have already arrived at the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom. The Noble Frost Kingdom, huh? List did not comment on this. He did not want to meet the Empire so early, but since he was already here, he might as well take things as they come. At most, he would continue to slay the dragons. As long as it was not a swarm of 10 or 20 dragons, it was not a big deal. Even if a group of dragons really attacked, the power of fate would help him avoid danger and make the right choice. Chapter 11-13. Apart from severing diplomatic relations, the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom and the Eagle Kingdom did not make any more drastic reactions. Even when the Amethyst Stone Dragon Phil Iris Flower and the Bronze Dragon Knight Alonso Cyclamen were killed one after another, and their dragons were killed and robbed, there was no official response. Clearly they were plotting an alliance between the 3 kingdoms and gaining the support of the Frost Kingdom. List was happy about this. He hosted the Fire Kingdom's first annual celebration as usual, and conferred a batch of meritorious knight titles. The Fruit of the Soul was being nurtured closely, and the Xiongyu teleportation matrix was being restored. At the same time, following the guidance of the power of fate, good news came one after another. The first good news was that the giant kelp sprite Parker had finally completed the process of becoming a dragon sprite after half a year of evolution, becoming his 5th dragon sprite. Parker handsome. As a dragon sprite, Parker proudly expressed his joy. He still had no wings, but his ability to control water had greatly increased. When he stood on the surface of the sea, water would naturally lift him up, similar to a chi's ability to control water. List gave a thumbs up and praised, Parker handsome indeed. Yo, you're handsome too. Haha, same here. With Parker's evolution, the scale of the kelp forest at the bottom of the sea soared, and the daily production of the giant kelp potion also increased, greatly relieving List of the potion's pressure. The second good news was that after the bronze dragon gnome was stolen, List dragged the other sprites to spend 3 days with gnome. Then, the coffee sprite Mondo and the nameless barley sprite actually fell in love with the bronze dragon, starting their own evolution. Including the calabash sprite Klein, who was still in the process of evolving, he had another 3 sprites on the verge of becoming dragon sprites. With the power of fate interfering, the chances of success were very high. The third good news was that in the dragon slaying battle, Achi was becoming more and more adept at using spatial magic. she had a new understanding. She felt that she could already sort out the spatial cracks, and was now experimenting with the collapsed Xiongyu teleportation matrix, striving to repair it without the help of the invisible dragon. When a Qi has enough experience with the Xiongyu teleportation matrix, I can help Big Brother sort out the spatial cracks outside the ruins, hee. The little sea monster became more and more knowledgeable and powerful. Very good, I have been waiting for the opening of this ruin for a long time. Touching a Qi's hair, List was slightly excited. This land of ruins was the reward for exploring the sacred mountain back then, and the reward was the entrance to the ruins. Generally speaking, it was similar to a different space or a special gem space. But because he was blocked by the densely packed spatial cracks, he couldn't enter. So, he had no idea what was inside the ruins. He only knew that it was probably left behind by the ancestors of the Moon Killer, the magic shooters who fought against the Moon Dragon. At the same time, he could vaguely feel that the threads of fate were guiding him to this ruin. Perhaps by entering the ruins, I'll be able to unravel the reason for the destruction of the ancient Moon Empire, find the secret of the Weave Dragon's slumber, and the incomparable battle that led to the death of the Smoke Dragon and Emerald Dragon. After the new year, there were not many matters that required the king's presence. List had plenty of time to train freely with his own dragons. The soul imprint of the Grey Iron Dragon Orn had been successful, and now he returned to the dragon nest to train with the 3 Dragon Knight candidates, Hippolyta, De Gaulle and Nicholas, to choose a suitable Dragon Knight. Leo was constantly sent to newly discovered volcanic craters to absorb volcano super magic to speed up his growth. In addition, there was the Royal Sapphire Dragon Rise, who trained with List the most and for the longest time, because it was the only dragon with the potential to become a magic shooter. Using its magic, it could release all kinds of powerful magic and its combat potential was huge. Prepare for war. In the blink of an eye, it was already March. A piece of news that was not considered bad, but it did make List a little uncomfortable was sent back by the Blood Servant who explored the Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom. The Iron and Steel Pearl Marilyn Red White Rose was officially married to the son of a prince of the Blast Furnace Kingdom. When the Red White Rose family formed an alliance with the Eagle family in the Iron and Steel Ridge, they already knew that the possibility of a marriage alliance with List was zero. Now that the 3 kingdoms had formed an alliance, the Red White Rose family became a part of politics to maintain the alliance between the Iron and Steel Ridge and the Blast Furnace Kingdom. In addition, the Eagle Kingdom and the Blast Furnace Kingdom had already formed an alliance through marriage. It could be said that the 3 kingdoms had formed an alliance. However, just when List did not know how to react to this news, a really good piece of news came from the Noble Frost Kingdom. The Blood Servant found out that there was a desert area in the north of the Noble Frost Kingdom. There were dozens of active volcanoes in the desert, and they often erupted continuously. It's bigger and more spectacular than the endless volcanoes on the Flame Island. List raised his head and looked into the distance. He immediately made a decision. This is a great opportunity for Leo to grow, I must seize it. Soon he returned to the Palace of Stars, Sun and Moon and came to a huge sand table. This sand table was a map of the legendary continent made according to the positioning of the sextant used by the mermaids when they cruised the sea. Many details had been added to the area of the 3 kingdoms in the northeast, but the other areas were still blank. The Blood Servant still had another job, which was to go to various places and use the sextant to map. According to the location of the Blood Servant, the volcanoes called the Calamity Volcanoes are roughly in this location. If I set off from the Brass Mine Magic Gate, the straight line distance is about 58,000 kilometers. With the speed of the Invisible Dragon Bard, using the normal speed of 400 kilometers per hour, flying for 10 hours in a day would be 4,000 kilometers. It would take about 15 days to travel 58,000 kilometers. The round trip would take a month. Of course, if he could find a natural node near the Calamity Volcanoes and travel through the world outside the material world, the time would be greatly reduced. The world outside the material world was very special. It was not the same dimension as the material world. It was like a ball. The surface was the material world, and the inside was the world outside the material world. On the surface, one had to walk a long way, but on the inside there were shortcuts. Bring Leo and Winnie. Bard and I will go to the Calamity Volcanoes. As for the Fire Kingdom, leave it to Emily and Ichi to protect. If the 3 kingdoms ally to invade, directly cut off the teleportation portal to protect ourselves. If they really attack, it will be fine as long as the dragon and the people are safe. He prepared for the worst and gave some instructions. In the middle of March, he quietly set off. Along the way he crossed the Eagle Kingdom, the Blast Furnace Kingdom and the Fallen Leaf Kingdom, and finally arrived at the noble Frost Kingdom. However, he was not in the mood to enjoy the scenery. Apart from rushing along the way, he only hurriedly landed and rested. More than a dozen space gems were stuffed with enough food for him, Bard, and Leo to enjoy. The magic potions were a little less, but it was enough to support the consumption of this large family. With the passage of time, they finally arrived at the Calamity Volcanoes at the beginning of April. The climate here was very bad. There were no plants growing, so it was desolate. Roar! Leo felt the aura of the volcanoes and directly flew out of List's body. He turned into a black and red dragon with a wingspan of 70 meters and a long body. He flapped his wings and directly pounced on a volcano. Excitement. This was his first reaction. Go. There are so many volcanoes, and there are definitely many with magma. I hope that you can grow into a real adult fire dragon after you absorb all the volcano super magic here. Then, we will be able to touch the barrier together and advance to Barrier Night. List smiled. He watched as Leo flew into the mouth of a volcano. After a long time, he and Bard had a thought. They escaped into the world outside the material world and looked for the nearby natural nodes. Chapter 11:14. There were 3 easily discovered natural nodes in the disaster volcanoes. They were scattered in a few craters, but there were no more discoveries. In List's knowledge, the formation of every natural node was directly or indirectly related to the super magic explosion. Among the natural nodes that had been discovered, there were jade mines, brass ores, the legs of emerald dragons, and the remains of fire dragons. All of them were related to dragons. Therefore, the discovery of the 3 natural nodes in the Calamity volcanoes indicated that there might have been fire dragons in ancient times. Other than the movement of the tectonic plates, only fire dragons could create volcanoes. Of course, there was another possibility. Phoenixes, which represented the power of fire, could also create volcanoes. It's a pity that I can't fully unleash the power of Phoenix. It's too difficult for me to create volcanoes. After the discovery of the 3 natural nodes, List took the opportunity to inspect the distribution of magma in the disaster volcanoes. The amount of magma and the amount of volcano supreme magic here was far greater than that of the doomsday volcanoes on the fiery island. There are enough volcano supreme magic. According to Leo's absorption speed, he will become an adult in half a year. At that time, I will fight alongside Leo and become a barrier knight. When I break the barrier, no, I don't need to break it. I just need a slight breakthrough to be invincible in the legendary continent. Standing on a pitch-black rock at the crater of the volcano, List looked past the group of Calamity volcanoes and towards the mountains in the distance. After I have unified the 3 countries in the northeast of the legendary continent, the next step will be to destroy the noble Frost Empire. He made a great ambition. After bidding farewell to Leo, who was greedily absorbing the volcano supreme magic, List returned to the fiery island through the world outside the material world. With the natural nodes, he only needed to come once every 3 to 5 days to deliver food and drinks to Leo. The majestic jade teleportation portal was repaired by a chi at the beginning of May. At this time, the Eagle Kingdom, Iron and Steel Ridge Kingdom, and Blast Furnace Kingdom officially announced an alliance to develop the sea together. They organized the Dragon Knight to patrol the sea and actively attack the Fire Kingdom's smuggling routes. At the same time, the Dragon Knight also harassed the majestic city that was being rebuilt. Attacking the Fire Kingdom's foreign trade and cutting off the nutrients for the Fire Kingdom's growth was probably the first policy after the 3 kingdoms formed an alliance. This was indeed effective, causing the Fire Kingdom's trade to fall into a crisis, especially when it came to the demand for potions. A few dragons were starving. Let the mermaids participate in the maritime trade. Every transaction should be done quickly to minimize the possibility of being attacked by the alliance of the 3 countries. At the same time, strengthen the relationship with Snow Wind Mountain Duchy. Through Snow Wind Mountain Duchy, trade with Yellowstone Plain Kingdom. It would be best to contact the royal family of Yellowstone Plain Kingdom and tell them that I intend to sell them the space gem. Space gems were important strategic resources, but strictly speaking they were more like luxury goods. When List was out, he would use the space gems to transport the necessities of daily life. When it came to military use, it would probably increase the endurance of the Dragon Knight. However, a single space gem was not enough to sustain the Dragon Knight for a long period of time. He would have to gather several gems. Therefore, it was not enough to support the enemy. Therefore, it was completely feasible to sell the spatial gems. He had planned to do so a long time ago. Your Majesty, the Duke of Snowwind Mountain has re-established a close relationship with the royal family of Yellowstone Plain. The Duke is full of respect for the Fire Kingdom. I believe he will be willing to act as a middleman and contact the royal family of Yellowstone Plain for us. Spot is very wise. I admire him. List smiled. Although he still sheltered the second Prince C. Carter, it did not prevent him from continuing to do business with Duke Spot. Tell him to tell the royal family of Yellowstone Plain that the space gems are priceless, but I only need magic potions, sufficient magic potions. Yes, your majesty. I will tell the Duke of Snowwind Mountain, Marquis of Yellow City. Yevich Water Peanut answered. Light emerald, orichalcum, adamantine, and mithril can all be sold. The Fire Kingdom can satisfy the appetite of the royal family of Yellowstone Plain. In addition, tell Spot that as long as he facilitates the transaction, I will give him a commission of 2 points and guarantee that C. Carter will not attempt to restore the throne. The Fire Kingdom had sufficient light emerald. As for magic metal, it did not lack at all. The alchemy magic array had been refining the magic metal for sale. Otherwise, the Fire Kingdom would not be able to support 10 dragons. As you wish, your majesty. The Duke of Snowwind Mountain is a smart man. He will definitely make the right choice. Smart people are the best. I like dealing with smart people. The source of the magic potion was solved. List immediately focused all his energy on the entrance of the Land of Relics. Achi rode on the Unicorn Charlie and cleaned the space cracks near the entrance of the Land of Relics every day. The invisible dragon Bard assisted her. Relying on Bard's spatial power and Achi's powerful magic calculation ability, they could basically repair a space crack in a week. There seemed to be a lot of space cracks, but in fact all they needed to do was to clean out a path for Bard to pass through. Judging from the current situation of the space cracks, there are about 16 space cracks that need to be repaired. That means it will take 4 months, brother, Achi said. 4 months? I can afford to wait that long. He had already gotten the reward of the smoke mission for 2 to 3 years. After waiting for such a long time, he naturally did not mind waiting for another 4 months. Just when the foreign trade of the Fire Kingdom was being attacked by the alliance of the 3 kingdoms, the Duke of Snowwind Mountain, Spot, who was tempted by great benefits, successfully got in touch with the royal family of Yellowstone Plain and facilitated the trade between the 2 kingdoms. I am already familiar with the legendary story of His Majesty List. I hope that the trade between us will allow you to successfully pass through the blockade of the 3 kingdoms. The person sent by the royal family of Yellowstone Plain to host the trade was the Dragon Knight Prince. He spoke in poor Wind language. List had not learned the language of the Yellowstone Plain Kingdom, so he could only reply in Wind language. Prince of Punjab, send my friendly greetings to His Majesty Pankasek. I hope that the trade can continue as normal. Of course, His Majesty Pankasek has also told me that he hopes that our 2 kingdoms can form a friendship. That would be best. The atmosphere between the 2 was friendly, but the trading personnel under them were negotiating with words. In the end, they spent a week finalizing the details of the trade. 10 space gems were exchanged for 1,000,000 mixed ordinary potions, 100,000 single ordinary potions, and 5,000 special ordinary potions. Almost the value of a space gem could really be exchanged for a large city with a population of 100,000. Unfortunately, the Yellowstone Plain Kingdom did not sell powerful magic potions, supplementary magic potions, and dragon magic potions. 800 light emeralds were exchanged for 200,000 mixed ordinary potions, and a large amount of wheat, barley, corn, and other grains. Magic metals such as mithril, adamantine, and orichalcum were exchanged for a large amount of magic materials. A month later, the trade was successfully completed. This made List heave a huge sigh of relief. Without the supply of magic potions, his dragons would rebel. Relying on this batch of traded materials, the Fire Kingdom could successfully survive for a whole year. It was hard on Bard, who had to repair the space cracks while painstakingly creating 6 space gems. To make up for the number of space rings that List had, he continued to have more than 10 space rings every day for carrying supplies. In the blink of an eye, September arrived and the fire dragon Leo had not yet returned. Achi had successfully repaired the 16 space cracks and opened up a path to the ruins. Brother, we can open the ruins now. Yes, we can. List rode on the invisible dragon Bard and smiled at Achi, who was riding on the Unicorn Charlie. With a thought, Bard turned into a shadow and rushed to the natural node at the entrance of the ruins. Chapter 11:15. After passing through the natural node, a brand new world appeared in List's vision. It was a foggy world with ice and snow, thin air and extremely low temperature. This is the alternate dimension built by the magic shooters who killed the ancestors of the Moon People? List activated the super demonic dragon battle energy to resist the extreme cold brought by the surrounding ice and snow. Even with his current physical strength he could not withstand it. He needed to use the dragon battle energy to keep himself warm. This showed how cold it was outside. Achi, can you withstand it? It's okay, brother. Achi has already switched to the ice elemental incarnation. I don't feel cold at all. It's just that the air is thin and breathing is not very smooth. Achi and the unicorn Charlie under her behaved very naturally and did not feel any discomfort. As for the invisible dragon Bard under him, he did not feel anything strange either. It was just that flying was very unstable and seemed to be very strenuous. In the end it landed on a thick layer of snow. Dragons relied on airflow and magic to fly. In this environment the airflow was thin, and magic was even more scarce. Although Bard was not afraid of the cold, it did not mean that he liked this place and could not help but complain. Patting his neck, List gestured for Bard to walk on his legs. Let's walk forward first. See what's different about this world and what the ancient magic shooters left behind. Bard walked. Charlie was still pacing in the air. Sometimes, it was even more magical than a dragon. Brother, this world is very strange. Why does Achi feel like she is still in the original world? Achi tried to cast a spell, and then she suddenly realized. Yes, brother, this world is the original world. Achi can still extract magic from the magic net. What? List was stunned. Maybe the entrance to the ruins is not the entrance to the alternate dimension, but a normal natural node. This means that brother and Achi passed through the natural node and came to the legendary continent, or maybe somewhere in the Malfa continent. Judging from the environment here, it should be a mountain peak or a plateau. Not the alternate dimension, but a mountain peak or plateau somewhere. List couldn't accept this. He was still wondering if he could obtain many great treasures from the ruins, but in the end there was no ruins at all. But soon he thought, no, the reward of the smoke mission is indeed the entrance to the ruins, but it is not indicated that it will be an alternate space. The so-called alternate space is my own judgment based on my understanding of the natural nodes, and I judge that this natural node may lead to an alternate space. The Sun Moon Valley's natural node was connected to this natural node, so he had thought that one led to the real world and the other to another world. He didn't expect both of them to lead to the real world. However, regardless of whether it leads to the real world or not, this natural node is the entrance to the ruins. Hence, this place is still an ancient ruin. After figuring out the reason behind it, he directly asked, Achi, can you determine our current location? Achi shook her head in distress. I can't, brother. It's snowing all over the place. I can't even tell the direction. Then forget it. Let's continue to walk around. At least figure out where we are. By the way, let's see if there are ancient ruins around. After all, this is a natural node connected to the Killing Moon Sacred Mountain. Maybe there will be magic shooters' remnants here. Yeah. 1 man, 1 sea monster, 1 dragon, and 1 unicorn searched on this vast mountain peak. The snow was accompanied by heavy fog, making visibility extremely low, and the depth of the snow also made it difficult to find the mountain rocks. Fortunately, List's super demonic dragon chi was very strong. With a few slashes he could melt a large amount of snow and ice, exposing the exposed mountain rocks. Relying on this method, they soon found a new problem in this place. Brother, these exposed mountain rocks are very flat, but judging from the traces of rock fracture, they should not be so flat. Achi was knowledgeable and made a direct judgment. Although there are no traces of artificial carving, Achi still judged that this is a man-made platform. You mean, someone cut off the top of the mountain here in order to make a platform on the top of the mountain? Yes. It sounded a little unbelievable, but it soon confirmed Achi's guess. They had walked to the edge of the platform, and the vast snow-covered ground suddenly tilted downwards. There was also a storm formed by the whistling wind and snow. The raging magic power and airflow were comparable to supreme magic spells. With the invisible dragon's physique, white marks appeared on the dragon's scales with just a slight touch of the storm. Bard decisively retreated. He was not an adult yet and did not want to take risks. It seems that your guess is right. It is indeed a man-made platform. This is a mountain that has been cut off. The storm outside is too strong to walk. Let's explore along the edge of the platform to see how big it is. The two walked along the edge of the platform and kept moving forward. After a big circle, it took more than an hour to estimate that the whole platform was about the size of a small town, nearly 100 square kilometers. Except for the platform, everything was surrounded by the storm and it was difficult to move. Such a high mountain, such a violent snowstorm, I have a vague guess in my heart. Let's spend some more time to clear all the snow on the platform and see what remains of the ancient magic shooters left on this platform. Yes. At that moment, List used Chi and Chi used magic to continuously clean the snow on the platform at the top of the mountain. Of course they were not fools. They cleaned all the snow, starting from the center of the platform. When a large area was cleaned, artificial traces finally appeared. It was a huge chisel that formed mysterious magic lines. It's part of the lines of the magic circle, but there is no magic flow anymore. Time has abandoned it, Chi judged. Continue cleaning and find the true face of the magic circle. As the snow was cleaned, more and more magic lines were exposed. Each magic line was a few meters thick and hundreds of meters long. Some were independent, some were connected in a large area, and they continued to spread throughout the entire mountain. Finally, it was almost night when the mountain was completely dark. The magic circle was fully exposed. Because the fog and snow were too heavy, it was impossible to see the entire magic circle, but this did not prevent Chi from drawing the magic circle bit by bit on the blueprint. The sky was completely dark and the wind and snow were still howling. She lit the magic tube in her hand. List and Chi looked at the magic circle together. The huge magic circle was in the shape of a disc with circles of lines. Each circle of lines was different, and there were all kinds of mysterious magic symbols. It looked like a huge compass, slightly rough and not delicate enough. Chi, can you understand it? Well, I can understand some of it. Brother, look, this symbol means space, and this symbol means time. These two symbols are in the main body of the magic circle, indicating that this magic circle has the nature of space and time. Brother, look at the lines here, they are similar to the magic structure of natural nodes. List's heart stirred and he said, it seems that this magic circle is a space-time channel. No, it should be a magic space-time teleportation array. That's possible, but we need to figure out the remaining symbols and lines and inject magic to retest it, Chi replied seriously. List immediately had an inspiration. Chi, I had a vague guess before and now this guess is almost correct. What guess? Chi asked curiously. Mula Gaoding Mountain. The Nine Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 11:16. New Book Notice 4, The Big Dragon is Dead. Please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 11:17. There was a legend in this world. In the center of the legendary continent, there was a Mura Gaodin mountain. At the top of the mountain, there was a teleportation circle that led to the moon. Whoever could climb to the top of Mura Gaodin mountain and light up the teleportation circle would be able to control the endless wealth on the moon. There was also a legend that the royal family of the Unsetting Light Empire were the descendants of the magic shooters who returned to Earth from the moon. That was why they were able to establish the most powerful empire in the legendary continent. It was also said that they were the guardian knight of the ancient Moon Empire's magic shooters. After the magic shooters disappeared, the knight became the king. The word Mura Gaodin, in the language of the moon itself, meant Moonlight's guardian knight. Mura Gaodin Mountain was located at the junction of the Unsetting Light Empire, the Blue Dragon Empire, and the Icefield Kingdom. At present, no one knew how high this mountain was because no one could climb to the top of this mountain. Even the Dragon Knight, who could fly at an altitude of 10,000 meters, could not. It was said that halfway up the mountain was more than 10,000 meters high. Huge storms blew all year round, and even the Dragon Knight would be destroyed by the storms. Therefore, thousands of years of legend had passed, but no Dragon Knight had ever reached the top of Mura Gaodin Mountain. List suppressed his excitement and said calmly, Chi, if I'm not wrong, this is Mura Gaodin Mountain. The flying teleportation circle under our feet is the teleportation circle that leads to the moon. Mura Gaodin Mountain really exists. Brother, does this mean that there are humans on the moon? It's very possible. I didn't believe in legends before, but facts have proven that legends can exist. Otherwise, there would be a reason for them to be passed down. This was a fantasy world. Humans did not need to deliberately fabricate various myths. Those dragons, elves, magic shooters and Dragon Knight were part of the myths themselves. Therefore, since a large number of legends had been proven to exist, it was not unbelievable that there were humans on the moon. After all, there was even a dragon called the Moon Dragon. Perhaps it came from the moon. If there were dragons on the moon, it meant that there were living creatures. Therefore, it was natural that there were humans living there. Achi, do you think this moon teleportation circle can still be repaired and activated, and then we can be teleported to the moon? Whether there were humans on the moon or not, there was no need to guess too much. They would naturally know once the teleportation array was fixed. Achi looked at the blueprint in her hand and thought quietly for a moment. Everyone, Achi has too little information at the moment and my research on this teleportation array is too shallow. I can't make any judgment for now. Let Achi study it here for a while and thoroughly understand the teleportation array. Alright, let's study it first. List nodded. He was both expectant and disappointed. He had thought that he would be able to find a treasure left behind by an ancient high mage, but it turned out to be a possible moon teleportation array. However, this did not stop him from continuing to ride on the invisible dragon bard and sweep the snow on the mountaintop platform. Snow was still falling from the sky. If he did not clean it up in time, it would soon be covered by the teleportation formation. This made him think of a solution. Come Bard, let's go find Leo. Returning to Sun Moon Valley required Bard's help. Otherwise, neither List nor Achi would be able to open the natural node here. Passing through the natural node, they entered the world beyond the material world. The man and the dragon did not return to the palace of stars, sun, and moon. Instead, they found the natural node of the Calamity volcanoes. They passed through it and arrived at the endless volcanoes. Leo was happily absorbing the volcano superdemons in the Calamity volcanoes. When List saw him, he did not waste any time. Leo, I need a batch of your fire dragon superdemons. Don't worry, I'm just borrowing them for a while. I'll return them to you after I'm done. There won't be much damage. Oh. Leo was unwilling. Hurry up. Oh. In the end, Leo spat out a batch of volcano superdemons and let List put them in a container made of volcanic glass. Then he returned to the mountaintop of Muragadon and released the fire dragon superdemons. Every area was protected from the volcano superdemons, which formed small magical fire dragons that danced freely. These magical fire dragons constantly released heat, melting and evaporating the snow, forming a hazy mist. It slightly hindered their vision, but there was no more snow on the ground. Achi only needed to release a bit of wind magic to blow away the mist. Then their vision became extremely clear. Brother, if you're busy, you should go first. Achi is preparing to do research on the mountaintop for the next few days. You can receive the magic platform signal, right? Yes. That's good. Contact the magic platform if there's anything. As List spoke, he controlled the invisible dragon Bard to fly through the natural nodes. However, this time Bard's feet slipped. Thud. The man and the dragon almost fell flat on their faces. Bard was annoyed. However, List noticed that Bard's feet actually stepped on a rock and broke it. After the rock broke, a dark hole was revealed. Don't move, Bard. He jumped off the dragon and walked to the hole. Looking down, he found that it was a stone staircase that led to the depths of the underground. Achi also rushed over on Charlie the unicorn. Observing with List, she said, Brother, this tunnel should be part of a magic array. I'll go and check it out first. Be careful. It's dangerous. It's okay. There are not many things in this world that can hurt me, not to mention a relic left from who knows how many years ago. List was not arrogant, but the power of fate did not warn him. On the contrary, there were faint threads connecting the tunnel, making him feel that this was also part of the reward of the relic entrance. Achi, go down with brother. Achi was worried. Okay, let's go down together. List smiled and held Achi's little hand, causing Charlie the unicorn to snort in disdain. The stone staircase was winding, but it was not narrow. List and Achi each held a magic torch. The strong light illuminated the tunnel, and they could see some intermittent runes on the walls. Achi, what do these mean? Many of the magic runes created by the sorcerers of the ancient Moon Empire have already been eliminated. Nowadays the sorcerers use the newest runes. Brother, look at this rune. It means radiate, and it can radiate magic power. This rune means accelerate, and it can speed up the operation of magic power. As he walked, he noticed that the walls were filled with magic runes that had been casually carved on them. Many of them had been eliminated and only a few were still in use. Why did the ancient mages carve them? Are they part of the teleportation circle? I don't think so. These runes have no signs of magic invasion. They should be simple stone carvings and have no direct connection with the teleportation circle. As they walked and talked, the tunnel extended down for about 3 kilometers. There was a break midway with a bottomless crack spreading. Other than that, there was nothing special about the tunnel. After 3 kilometers, their vision suddenly opened up, and they had arrived at a huge hall. The hall was the size of a football field. In the center was a stone pillar that looked like an altar, connected to the top of the cave. Around the altar, 108 colorful dragon-shaped stone sculptures were arranged in a circle, surrounding and guarding the altar stone pillar. These stone sculptures. List opened his mouth. Does each represent a type of dragon? Achi, take a look and see if there are any duplicates of the dragon stone sculptures. The new book has been released. City of Treetops welcomes new readers. Chapter 11:18. There were a total of 108 dragon-shaped stone sculptures. They were distributed around the altar. They were not categorized according to the type, and the order was somewhat messy. List and Achi were shocked and began to carefully observe these dragon-shaped stone sculptures. The ancient magic shooters ruled the legendary continent. Their understanding of dragons must be far more comprehensive than it is now. These dragon-shaped stone sculptures are probably all the types of dragons. Brother, can you recognize all the dragon-shaped stone sculptures? I don't know. Let's eliminate the ones we know one by one. For example, let's eliminate the gemstone dragons first. There are a total of 36 types of gemstone dragons. The dragon-shaped stone sculptures had different colors and were made of different materials, so it was easy to identify the gemstone dragons. From red to green, from blue to yellow, from purple to pink, they found a total of 39 types of dragon-shaped stone sculptures that were similar to the gemstone dragons. This one is translucent and petite. It's obviously the stone sculpture of an invisible dragon. This one is verdant and not very big. It should be the stone sculpture of an emerald dragon. And this one has a gray gemstone color. It's different from the colors of the 36 types of gemstone dragons we know. It shouldn't be a gemstone dragon either. The remaining 36 types of dragon-shaped stone sculptures all corresponded to their respective gemstone dragons. From the royal sapphire dragon to the light green gemstone dragon, there was everything, and the proportions and sizes were all consistent. Then they found the dragon-shaped stone sculptures with a metallic luster. There were a total of 54 types. Among them, the iron dragons, copper dragons, tin dragons, gold dragons, silver dragons, platinum dragons, aluminum dragons, lead dragons, and so on could be distinguished. However, there were many that could not be distinguished and could only be vaguely identified. This one is a fire dragon. This one is an ice dragon. Soon, the 8 types of elemental dragons were identified one by one. Among the metal dragons, gemstone dragons, and elemental dragons, the elemental dragons were relatively large, especially the fire dragons. This one is a smoke dragon. Brother, look, it really looks like a cloud of smoke. Achi pointed to a dragon-shaped stone sculpture. The dragon carved on the stone sculpture was composed of clouds of smoke. There was no doubt that it was a smoke dragon. List's eyes stayed on the stone sculpture of the smoke dragon for a long time. Although he was already hatching the egg of the smoke dragon in his mind, it was the first time he saw what the real smoke dragon looked like. Who would have thought that the dragon, as its name suggested, was really made up of smoke? At this point, 54 types of metal dragons, 36 types of gem dragons, 8 types of elemental dragons, as well as invisible dragons, emerald dragons, and smoke dragons had all been identified. There were still 7 dragon-shaped stone sculptures that were hard to identify. Achi, do you think this gray gem-like stone sculpture is a dusk dragon? Look at the way its scales are carved. Don't you think it looks like a lens? The dragon shape of the stone sculpture was not abrupt, and its body was not big either. However, its scales were very textured. Achi floated up and observed carefully. There really is one big brother. It should be the dusk dragon. Yes, we'll temporarily call it a dusk dragon. List then walked to a new dragon-shaped stone sculpture. I already know of 4 types of sacred dragons. There's still the last type, the fairy dragon. Among the remaining dragon-shaped stone sculptures, this dragon's lines are the softest, slender, and somewhat feminine. Could it be a fairy dragon? Her size is moderate. Let's temporarily call her a fairy dragon. Achi replied. After all, she had too little information about the fairy dragon. She only knew that it might exist in the land of exile. List nodded. So now there are 5 dragon-shaped stone sculptures left. 3 of them should be evil dragons, the cursed dragon, the shadow dragon, and the silent dragon. Then Achi, you must know which one is the cursed dragon? Achi pointed to one of them. It's this one. It's basically the same dragon shape as the remaining power of the cursed dragon. It's very ferocious and terrifying. This cursed dragon stone sculpture looked a bit like the desolate dragon in Monster Hunter. Its scales were grayish-brown, its body slender like a snake, and its wings were like bones. Its entire body was wrapped in scales, and there was almost no meat on its body. It could be recognized at a glance that it was the cursed dragon. There are 4 other dragon-shaped stone sculptures, each much larger than the fire dragon sculpture. Besides the silent dragon and the shadow dragon, what could the other 2 be? It should be the weave dragon and the moon dragon, Achi said. I think so too. As a dragon that broke the barrier, the weave dragon's body is definitely the largest, so this sculpture should be the weave dragon sculpture. He pointed to the largest of all the stone sculptures. His gaze was slightly heavy. Just one sculpture alone gave him a lot of pressure. The weave dragon sculpture was too large. It was 5 or 6 times the size of the fire dragon sculpture. It was covered in spikes, like a hedgehog dragon. Although the dragon's eyes were only carved from stone, the indifferent and superior aura it exuded was unmistakable. The cursed dragon's body should be similar to the silent dragon and the shadow dragon. Of the remaining 3 stone sculptures, 2 of the smaller ones should be them. The larger one, about 2/3 the size of the weave dragon, should be the moon dragon killed by the Moonslayer ancestor. The moon dragon's name sounded beautiful, and in fact it was indeed beautiful. The most important thing was that it had a pair of unique wings. These wings were particularly similar to the wings of lesser sprites, greater sprites, and dragon sprites, transparent like cicada wings. The 2 stood on top of the moon dragon's head and carefully sized up the stone sculpture. At the same time, doubts about the relationship between the moon dragon and the sprites emerged in their minds. In the era of the Moonslayer ancestor, the sprites were just sprite worms and could not evolve. The Moonslayer ancestor killed the moon dragon, so the modern sprites can evolve. Achi, what do you think? The cursed dragon's remnant power can pollute the sea. The remnant power of the moon dragon might also be able to pollute, and what it pollutes is the sprite worm. Is it the power of the moon dragon that gives the sprites the power to evolve? Achi raised a possibility. I think so too. You see, the weave dragon's magic power can be used by all wizards. It can be seen that the power of these unimaginable dragons is close to touching upon laws. It can be described as laws. These dragons themselves are the embodiment of a kind of law. This was List's way of thinking about the existence of barriers. In his opinion, elemental dragons, gem dragons, metal dragons, and sacred dragons represented the pinnacle of power, but they were still far from being able to completely control this power. They were only the manifestation of power, not the control of power. Evil dragon, moon dragon, and weave dragon were clearly existences that had broken through barriers, transcending power itself and beginning to grasp the laws behind power. Weave dragon grasped the laws of magic power, moon dragon grasped the laws of elves, and cursed dragon grasped the laws of curses. Although I don't know if my guess is correct, my understanding of this world is becoming clearer and clearer. I also have a new understanding of how Leo and I are going to break through barriers. Hee, congratulations, big brother. Achi said with a smile. Achi should also congratulate herself. More truths have been unveiled. Same to you. There are still 2 stone sculptures left. One is the shadow dragon, and the other is the silent dragon. Achi, how do you think they should be distinguished? This dragon looks so ugly and it's pitch black like a shadow. Let's temporarily call it the shadow dragon. In addition, this stone sculpture has a lot of blue light bulb-like scales. His body is very fat like a big toad. Let's temporarily call it the silent dragon. Alright, it's settled. When Achi has some time, I will go back and draw up a copy of the dragon picture collection, to add to the encyclopedia. Achi did not forget that she was also the editor-in-chief of the encyclopedia. 11_11622/ You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.